Everyone ready to go? Good. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our July 9th, 2026 County Council meeting. Welcome to everyone here as well as anyone online. And first of all, we'll look at the agenda. I have a few changes on the agenda, so bear with me. There will be a notice of motion presented. That'll be, we'll present that in 10A2. There is going to be a business arising. It's right now, it's under administration 11C, so that is going to be changed to 5.2 following the adoption of the minutes. After the 10 a.m. appointment, we're going to change the numbers. 6.2 is going to be the report on the emergency, so that will be immediately following the presentation of 6.1, that appointment, so it should be, well, right after that. And then comes 6.3 will be then the 10:30 a.m. West Interlake District presentation, and 6.4 the 11:30 appointment. Also, in addition to the agenda that some of you may not have yet, is number 10, which is letter of support for the Lac St. Anne Foundation. And then from the old agenda, the 10 moves to 11. And I believe that's all I have. Are there any other additions to the agenda or changes?
You got mine.
What's that?
You got mine.
Okay. All right. Okay, I would accept a motion to accept the agenda, seeing you all know exactly what it is now. Mike. Mike moves to accept it. All those in favor? That motion is carried. Okay, public input session. We have one member, one presenter. Andy, if you'd like to come up to the hot chair, and you have 3 minutes.
I'm going to bring up this here slide in Sangudo. A year ago, I asked county councilors what's happening there. They told me that to talk to Greg Edwards about it. So anyhow, before the election, the two Jills were campaigning and in Sangudo here at the hall there, and we asked about that slide, what's going to happen there. Plus, there was a forum in Onaway. Barry was there, Mike was there, Dale, and Bo, as well as Jill and were in the audience, and you, Jürgen. Now, when the meeting got going there, the first thing that was brought up was that slide. And there was another guy, was Barry Lyons. He come up there and he wanted to talk about the slide, but what's his name cut him off there, Terry Stumko, if you remember that. Now I hear you guys postpone that for another year. That's not going to happen. Between the two stop signs there in Sangudo there by the post office and Ray's Auto, at times there, she's pretty hectic in there. Kids going to school, coming out of school, buses going in, out. Not good. What are you guys gonna do about it?
So, Mr. Chair, I can handle some of this.
Just to remind everyone that the public input session is not a discussion session. It is for ratepayers to present their opinions and do so, but it will not be a discussion. All right? Council will take that as information and deal with it appropriately. So, Andy, you won't find a discussion on this, okay?
It was also brought up in a divisional meeting about that slide. Barry was there, you were there, Ed, Joe, CEO, and Mitchell was there. That was brought up at the time. And now I hear you guys are not gonna do nothing for another year? Not good.
Well, I thank you very much for the presentation, and all I'm going to say is, Andy, we've talked about it many times. It is being looked at, but it has to be done right. Just like anything else, the thing that's going on in just west of Mayerthorpe right now was fixed with gum and never worked, and the same thing is going to be in this case. When we do it, it'll be done right. Okay? Thank you.
I got more to say, but
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. So no one else came? All right, thank you very much. Next, we'll go to the minutes. You've all received the minutes. Are there any errors or omissions to the minutes? Is there a motion to accept? Ed? Any discussion? All in favor? Motion's carried. All right, so next I'll move to 5.2, business arising from the minutes. Ann? Okay.
Good morning, through the chair. Deputy Reeve Johnson requested that we have a more formal tracking system. What this is a list of everything that happened at every council meeting since January. And it's got the outstanding lists on it. So one thing I'd like to bring back for the 23rd is everything that's outstanding. We know that 540 Road is outstanding for sure. And I've talked to the new GM of operations, and he's assured me that he can have that back for the 23rd this month, because I know that one's been outstanding for a bit. For the most part, some of the things that are outstanding, funding model that's under Trista's area, that'll be coming back through the budget process. But what I'd like to do is give the list to council, let me know if there's anything missing. We have gone through actual council, and we have to be mindful that it has to be something that was directed at a council meeting, rather than the inundation of emails that we get and the smaller matters that we're dealing with. So I'm kind of going to ask Deputy Reeve Johnson if this is meeting your needs or in the intent of what you were looking for.
Through the chair, absolutely. I mean, what I brought it up for was several reasons. One, we are not here 365 days of the year, and we need to see where we progressed. We need to remind ourselves what we've asked you, and then you need to remind us what you've achieved. And I think that document, and it also, it's a good governance document that shows the public what we've asked. It shows the public what we've carried through, shows the public what is still to be done. So I haven't seen your document. I have one that I've written up as well, and be curious to see if it's very similar to yours, or what it should look like. So that's very good. That's exactly what I wanted. And if we could, I believe that document, if we got that monthly, then that would show us the progress monthly. We don't need it every meeting. If we have it once a month, I believe that's more than adequate, and that would be what I would personally request. What the rest of council wants as a whole would be the next thing that we decide.
Go ahead, Barry, and then Mike.
Yeah, I agree with the reporting. Almost every month, there might not be a ton of progress being made. Maybe in the winter months, maybe do a 2-month report. Or quarterly, maybe.
Through the chair to Councillor Voltner, I think quarterly's easier because we're trying to make the standardized reports coming to council quarterly. So if my reports were also quarterly, we have to remember that all the capital reporting that's happening as well is included in the GM of Corporate Services financial report. So all those pieces are in there. This is more other things that council have requested me to follow up with.
That's pretty much what I was gonna, how much work is it to have it monthly, or would quarterly make more sense, I guess? From a workload standpoint.
Through the chair, quarterly's easier, but monthly will be the same thing. It'll just, there may be a lot of in progress, or expected date, and then you can hold me to those expected date. Because what I did is I've coordinated the colors for everybody under me so that I know who to chase.
Just a quick question. Would it be possible if, and I like what you're doing there, but just a verbal from the meeting prior on, let's say, the 3 or 4 items that came up to just do a quick verbal after the business, in the business arising on the 3 topics where they're at?
Yes, yeah, we could do that. We
Like,
could do a verbal every month.
That would be nice, I think, and not necessarily all the long-term stuff would be in that report.
Okay.
Okay?
My reasoning was, a quarterly report is once every 3 months. And some of the situations may have already required some information or some different input from council. You may come back to us and say, look, at month and a half in, I'm trying to accomplish this. You have gave me this direction, and I can't make it happen with that direction. I may need something else.
Through the chair to Deputy Reeve Johnson, I would never let it go for 3 months. If I needed your clarity, I would absolutely ask you for sure. And I usually know when that's happening, you know, and
Okay.
when council needs to be brought into the discussion. for
And I'm
sure.
comfortable with that.
Just if I can use a bit of an example, you know, Andy's report on the slide, you know, it's the type of thing we have discussed, and it might be helpful if something like, you know, this report would probably show that, and it would show the progress, and then not only for council, but also for the public. All right.
Did you want a motion?
Okay.
Yes, motion, so clear direction that business arising happens on every second council meeting, once a month? Or do you want it on every agenda in case there's items?
So the business arising issue is different than what you're showing us there right now. You're showing your progress report. And what I'm talking about business arising is some of the other issues that happened besides those.
But my question is to Deputy Reeve Johnson, are you looking at operational or what are you, like the business arising piece in my mind should usually be something that is an emergent issue that has to be dealt with right away. So maybe we're not really calling it the correct thing. And maybe the monthly part is CAO progress report update. And the business arising is a separate piece, because in my mind, you're right, they are 2 separate things.
So my idea is not, my idea is the business arising is when the council makes a motion to have you do something. I want to check, maybe I've checked already and we've done something. If I haven't, I want to be able to bring it up at the next council meeting and say, where are you in that decision that we have made. That's what the business arising is out, that I want. Does that make sense?
I think that would be that verbal update from what happened the meeting before, not the meeting historically, but just the meeting prior, like today, you would report on what happened at the second meeting in June on those particular items, and just verbally. Your other one is the ongoing.
Progress report.
Okay, that's great, but just so you know, there might be a lot of, we're working on it, because sometimes, and that's fine, that we've assigned it and
Yeah.
it's, yeah.
And
okay.
I think that's a
Just so you
fine
know,
answer.
because I have to be realistic about when we're getting things done and knowing the current workload, so we'll just say it's assigned and we're looking at this date. Because usually when we make motions here in council, I do try to advise you how long it's going to take. For example, the 540, the GM's fairly new, and before the meeting, I asked him, will you have that ready for the 23rd? And he said, yes, he could, so making sure the timelines are on
So
there too.
I think that's totally fine, and that's how it gets reported. It keeps it in the minutes that it's being dealt with.
Okay, gotcha.
And
Thank
I
you.
would add too, that I would think that if we find in 12 months that this particular format needs to be changed, we can ask you to change it.
I got a question. Will this monthly report be available online that we can view, or the previous one that was submitted or something? Or can it be a live update?
Well, this is more for council's information, but I certainly can email it to you if that's easier.
On a monthly basis?
Okay? Any
Through,
other?
and just through to the chair and, you know, for the public, like that council gets weekly reports. And now we'll be adding a monthly report. So I'm just letting you know that sometimes if I'm over-reporting, it's going to hamper my actually doing some work. Just so you know, I'm cautioning you.
Thank you. Okay, Dale.
So with respect to the last comment about weekly reports, that's great, but personally, to sacrifice time to have a good monthly report, if I saw monthly what you did, I would be happy with that. To know weekly that what you're doing, I'm not so sure that.
Through
Go
the
ahead, Ann.
chair. The whole purpose of the weekly reports is because I'm your one employee and I'm running the operations. For example, we met in Sangudo with Councillor Stoney and a member of the public. I want the rest of council to know that that happened. So in my mind, that's something that if the member says to you, oh, hey, did you know about this? You should know, council should not be blindsided. That's the purpose of the weekly reports. And obviously, when there's anything that's urgent, that gets identified right away. I don't wait for those at all.
Thank you very much for that explanation.
Bo, did you? No. Yeah, I agree. I think those weekly reports are critical, and I would not want to stop them. Yeah.
And we get you get the weekly reports from the Reeve and from me, so everybody knows what everybody's doing.
Okay, thank you. Is that, can we have a motion on this for clear direction? I'll make that. Okay, Dale, what's the motion you're making?
I'm making the motion that we accept the report that Ann has produced and that we have that quarterly.
Okay, thank you. And a verbal each meeting from the meeting before or not? You don't want that in there?
That's fine. Verbal is
Yeah.
fine. That's fine.
Okay, all right. Did you get that, Cindy? Pretty close?
Quarterly or monthly?
He said quarterly. Are we okay? Any discussion on the motion? So the motion is that Ann provides us a quarterly update, that spreadsheet with where all the different items are, and each meeting an update of action items from the meeting previous. Is that clear? Yeah? Any further discussion? All those in favor? That motion's carried unanimously. Thank you very much.
And through the chair, one thing that we are doing internally is a council report card, a yearly report card, and my hope is that that'll come forward in September.
Good. Thank you very much. All right. Okay, so okay, go ahead.
So previously, through the chair, I'd like to understand if we have a policy. We had received a letter that was written on behalf of the county. A letter was written July 16th in support of a program. We didn't receive the letter till about the 25th, council did. And I want to know if there's a policy that, standard policy where acceptance, or how would you put it? Clarification on what and who can send letters of acceptance to other bodies. For example, we sent a letter dealing with the WRRP. And I don't know if we actually discussed that in council, and we did discuss it? Yeah. I must have missed it then.
Yeah, we were instructed to write that letter by council.
Okay. So then we do have a policy that sets out how we do that. Is that correct, through administration?
Through the chair, it is through the procedural bylaw that the Reeve writes a letter on behalf, but it does come to council, and that is in here, and I noticed it in the council meeting, and I can't remember which one, but it did come to council. There was a discussion and direction.
Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead, Bo.
I believe that original request to send support came from Allis. Did it not? Yeah. So that letter of support, we decided not to send out. We decided to come up with our own letter of support, and we never did get a chance to review the letter. The problem with this letter is that program was not just abolished, it was implemented and combined with a new program.
Through the chair, I'll have to dig through, but my recollection is that we had a discussion that we were going to you were going to direct administration to write this letter with certain parameters in it. That's my understanding, that I remember.
Yeah, I think, and Ed, maybe you want to jump in, but my recollection of that was they wanted, Alice wanted a letter coming from this council, from the county, to continue with the program as it was. They are not totally cutting back everything. I think they're changing it somewhat. And so our council, Ag Service Board deferred it to council to discuss. We discussed it, decided we're not willing to sign the letter that totally supports Alice because we're not sure we're going to continue with Alice. But we do support the WRP, that funding comes in, and that's what we discussed here. We discussed that at the Ag Service Board as well, but that's the instructions that I got, I thought, to sign a letter from the council, and it was, that letter was written, and I reviewed it, and I signed it. So, I mean, if the question is that every letter I send, we need total council's approval for it, that's a different policy, and I'm sure that, you know, if we want that added administration, and it's up to the council, but I'm not sure that we need to approve things 3 or 4 different times. Dale?
Yeah, through the chair, sorry, I was confused. I think what confused me was the fact that we did, now that we talk about Alice and we talked about the Ag Services Board, we did talk about that. Yes. That, I missed that whole part because I was remembering that we did not want to approve that certain area, but we were in favor of the total program. The other thing that I got confirmation is we do have a policy, which is fine. That's exactly what I wanted to make sure we had a policy. And if we didn't have a policy, for your job, make sure there was a policy so you could do that. Yeah. That was my point of bringing this up, so thank you, though.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion? Ed?
So Alice did supply us a template letter to use, and that's what we brought forward to council from the Ag Service side. And then we amended that, is what they're saying. We amended and changed that letter because of it was for full support of the Alice program through the WRP, right? So that's what we changed, and that's the letter that was submitted.
Okay, Bo?
So according to the policy, should that letter have came back to council for approval, or it?
No, as long as the Reeve reviews it and the Reeve signs on behalf of council, that he is a spokesperson for council. So council gave administration direction, we took the direction, did the letter, and he confirmed and signed the letter on behalf of council.
But the problem here is council never had a chance to review that letter.
Through the chair, council, through the Reeve, as a spokesperson, the Reeve is signing the letter on behalf of you. All of council doesn't need to review it. It's standard practice. And as the Reeve has stated, it would slow us down completely if every direction of council then had to go back for council to check that we were doing it properly.
Okay, so I think that's pretty clear. And I mean, if council wants to review every letter, then council has to make a policy on that. But be aware of what that will do to, these letters then will take 2 or 3 months to get out. So if that's what we want, but I do believe, and I do go through them, I read them, many letters I put changes in. And to try to, because I think I've got a finger on what council wants, and I put that in there. Now, I do want to hear from you. If there's something specific in that letter after you see it that's wrong, I want to know that as well. And I never heard anything back, so I'm a little surprised by this, but that's okay. If it isn't right, please let me know.
And that's the problem that we experienced here, is we never had the opportunity to review it before it went to the minister.
Well, then change the policy. I'm sorry.
Can we review that policy, Ann?
So we'll have a look at that policy, and then council will have to make that decision. Barry?
Could we maybe set it up in a way if it's going to a minister, we review it, but if it's going to an organization or something simple, we don't have to speed this up? Because this seems like a whole lot of red tape we just threw in front of ourselves for nothing. Like a minister letter, that's an important one. I get it. But the common stuff, guys, let's be smart about this.
Okay, any further discussion?
Yeah, I agree with Barry, and that's why we need a review of that bylaw, procedural bylaw.
Okay, so that'll be an action item, and that we bring forward that bylaw, and we'll have to have a look at it. Our procedural bylaw. All right? Clear on that, everyone? All right. Let's move on then. It's 10 o'clock, so we have an appointment with Bob Wrighton. Yeah, so if you want to come up here to the chair up there and state your name and make your presentation.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm Bob Wrighton, and I was kind of disappointed in having to pay this late fee last year when I come to pay my taxes, because I've been paying taxes since I think early 80s sometime in Lac St. Anne. And I usually pay it within the first week or so of when I get it. And last year, for some reason, we were away and I wasn't able to get here. And we had until the 30th of June, it says, to pay your taxes. So I was here on the 30th of June. And there was a sign on the door saying closed. So I came back on the 2nd of July to pay my taxes, and I was charged an extra $100 for late fees. And I just don't feel it was justifiable. And yeah, so I asked if there was somebody that I could talk to about it at the time, and the girl that was at the counter, she said there's nobody here right now to talk to. So she said you'd have to take it to council or something later. Well, I guess this is later because never got around to it till now. But
Okay, thank you. Bob, any questions to it, Bob? I just, I mean, the policy is certainly that taxes have to be paid by June 30th. You get the notice a couple months before, so it isn't as if you only have 24 hours to pay for it. So there is a policy in place, and council will, later on the agenda, we will discuss it and take your comments in consideration.
and I did find out this year that I was told that you get a day's grace. So if you get a day's grace, I should have been still within the time anyway. That's,
Just a question, who told you you get a day's grace?
I can't remember who it was, just somebody that I was talking to. They said they'll usually give you a day's grace if you're late, but
You actually get 6 months grace. They're due on
Do you-
January 1st, so you get 6 months grace, but I don't believe, I would really like to know if somebody said that, who it was, because we can't just take any end of.
remember who that was? Can't remember who it was.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you very much for your presentation. We'll take it into consideration in our decision.
Okay.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
All right, so let's move on to 6.2, the report on our emergency flooding. So Randy and Nick?
Sorry, through the chair, can you just make
Oh.
a resolution to accept his presentation
Sorry,
for information?
of course. So Mike makes a motion to accept Mr. Wrighton's presentation for information. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. All right. You're on. Sorry, Ann, go ahead.
Thank you. Can you guys, I'm sorry, I lost concentration there. I just wanted to say through the chair that in this recent overland flooding event, the team did really well. Council was inundated as well with calls and everything, but I think we showed so very clearly how we tested our systems and how we work collectively. So I was very proud. We did not want to receive this much rain, but I think it was a testament to both council and administration working very closely together through this emergency. So I just appreciate everybody's hard work.
Thank you for that, Ann. Go ahead, Rand.
Good morning, council. Thanks very much. We're just providing a short verbal update as to the current status, and Nick is certainly on hand here to provide some specific statistics for you. I just wanted to give you a short basic status is what's happened. So as we all know, previous reported, we started to get inundated with rain showers and storms through 3 systems starting on June the 21st. We activated our emergency control center here in an effort to get assessment established ongoing situational awareness and communications of our actions and response to the emergency. And the overarching piece to that is we established an emergency incident command system. So we established command, we established a planning sector, operations sector, logistics to support the operations, and of course financial limitations to it all. But when I say limitations, it meant that we needed to assess what this was all going to cost and put in some reasonable action into that. We assessed that primarily roads, culverts, and bridges, as well as landowners, were primarily impacted, but there was no emergency social services required, thankfully. Nick will update on the specifics of the roads. We allocated resources primarily internal with some contractor support throughout the operational periods related to this incident, with the overarching priorities that we established for every day that we were operating. Communications, the assessment and recovery of infrastructure, inclusive of roads and lagoons, all within a cost-conscious model. Safety, documentation, that was absolutely vital and is ongoing. And then, of course, responding to ratepayer concerns and ensuring that you, as a body, were able to, were duly informed. So the REEV was invited to participate, and almost all of our planning meetings after approximately June the, I believe, 23rd is when we started to do that. We formally deactivated the emergency control center in terms of an incident management piece yesterday. That doesn't mean that we're not managing the incident anymore. It's just that we have that formal requirement doesn't exist as we've transitioned and are transitioning more into our recovery phase with projects as assessed by the operations sector, and that's now falling into the hands of our general corporate management of these projects, which certainly will fall under Nick. We engaged the province throughout, and the Alberta Emergency Alert System was activated and maintained for 10 days, and we now formally sunsetted that piece as well in terms of the actual formal alert status with respect to the emergency. So now we have supplemented, we continue to supplement that with our communications broad spectrum across our website and social media. Based on feedback, I believe that we were generally successful in terms of, and when I say feedback, I'm talking ratepayer concerns, feedback via council, and what we were hearing in the field, that we were generally successful in ensuring that our ratepayers were updated accordingly and were listened to when they had concerns and brought them either through you or directly to us. Our intercom system worked brilliantly. We made some changes to ensure that everything was funneled directly to a single email that Public Works was able to mine and make sure and action. And that has continued and will be continuing ongoing. So we're moving now, as I said, into recovery operations. The status, we've implemented a live status map on our website that's interactive. So ratepayers, council, and our own staff are able to get updates on road closures, the impacted areas, and most importantly, progress. We should be able to see progress in terms of the stuff that we have managed or fixed, and so that is actually happening. And again, we've continued to engage with the province and financing financial through Jillian and her team. We'll be engaging the province with respect to potential cost recovery, for the mitigation efforts on this, and that is ongoing. And that's pretty much what I have as a synopsis, and I'll transition over to Nick.
So to give council an update on this, we received 226 calls for service during this time of this event. We have completed 43 of them, which is approximately 19%. We do understand that some of these are going to take longer term. Some of these will not be repaired until next summer. We are in a situation where we are managing the costs. We do have some risks that council must be aware of. Because we will not know of all of our funding secured on repairs, there is a risk moving forward that as we do repairs, they may or may not be funded under the disaster programs. So that is one risk that council has to be aware of. We are trying to action in the most reasonable cost possible. This last week, we have actually been very aggressive because this storm hit every section of the county. We brought in contractors to support our graders in an effort to have every gravel road graded within a 2-week period. So our goal, we're sitting on track. We're about 52% completed as of the end of this week is where we're targeting. So we'll be right on track by the end of next week to have every gravel road graded. We are seeing a lot of gravel where the fines were washed out, causing them to become a lot more of a marble surface because there's nothing holding the gravel there, which will lead to challenges. However, we have to manage the cost of that challenge with the overall cost of applying gravel to do every road in the county. As council is well aware, we have just over 2,200 kilometers of gravel surface. If we were to gravel every surface back to original before the storm, we're talking about $19 million at current rates. So we are managing and trying to hotspot within those and doing repairs that are at the highest priority and present the greatest risk to our public. Do you have any questions?
Go ahead, Dale.
Well, I have one. First of all, great job for the whole team. Right from everybody, not just the whole team. That was great to see that. The one thing I did note though, in some of the things that you did do, will we be able to use some of that for the future? And where I'm coming from on that is when you did the overhead view of the county, did you record that so there may be issues that popped up that weren't available that you couldn't see from the ground level?
Yeah, so when we did the flyovers, there was issues we saw. We also were able to get better long-term view of what was happening upstream and downstream of situations. We've mixed the helicopter flights with drone operations. The fire department and their team have also come out quite a bit with the drones. All of that information is being put into a central data point, as well as when we're looking at how we're doing repairs, we're looking at some of these, that's why I said some of them may not be completed till next year, because we need a bigger study of the whole effect of what occurred, not just we're fixing one road and then we're gonna leave it to get run over next year again. So we are taking all of that into account to develop a long-term solution to prevent more damages in the future.
And I think that's great, and that's good to see that you used, for lack of better terms, a disaster is going to create a good situation for the future. That's what.
Yeah.
Thanks.
You're welcome. I also believe that it helps us inform policies around some of our development. We'll be meeting with them to kind of talk about some of the things that we noticed with our development, especially around our subdivisions.
Just, great job, team. You guys were on top of many things. I got a few roads, like, I think we've talked about them a bit, like, hopefully we can get might be an ongoing, if we get it on an ongoing list, cause some of it is just beaver dams that, no matter how high up you build the road, it's gonna wash out every time it rains, right? So it might be, something to have on the list as well, to get some of those streams, try to keep them cleared out every year.
Well, and in relation to that, we've noticed that was a major issue around a lot of the culverts. So we're working internally to reassign resources to start building some beaver screens internally. And the goal is any of the culverts that we had a lot of plugging issues is to try to have them beaver screened before the winter.
That sounds excellent.
Okay, thank you. Further questions or discussion? Randy?
I would just like to offer, just to echo Councillor Johnson's sentiments with respect. There's often a standpoint of view of don't let a disaster go to waste in terms of planning for the next time, and that does ring true, because these types of situations always expose gaps that were never thought of whenever that infrastructure was contemplated. And so it's important that the municipality, through administration, through the council, we have an obligation to protect the ratepayers from the next storm if we can, and if it's within reason to do so in whatever particular situation. And so definitely, as these projects, and especially the longer term ones, speaking from a standpoint of view of an emergency response only, I think it's always important, and what council wants to avoid is, if we could have done something about it, and we should have done something about it, then we should do something about it. Because from a ratepayer standpoint of view, if it happens again and again and again, you hear it, everybody, and it does have an unfortunate impact. And this storm did, and I will just say this one, and then move on. But what this storm did, with the amount of rain and successive storms in short order, it certainly caused historical levels, or, you know, in quick rise in lake levels as an example. So the smaller lakes and those developments around those lakes were impacted with no meaningful measure that we could really do, like with the specifics with around Nakaman as an example. We assessed it. We certainly understood what was happening. There is some engineering measures in there that probably didn't contemplate this level of rainfall. And so something down the road, to the point of what Nick was saying, you know, studies could be, you know, could be looked at. Council can support those types of things and flesh that out. And the only final point is that all of this in our team approach and our response and our planning can be looked at by council via an after action review. And that's the most vital piece that we can use and would absolutely, and we are, that's part of our overall plan, is to ensure that we can bring a report back at some point in the future when it's appropriate to do so, so that council does have some insight into some recommendations.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Randy. Ann, go ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. And just to be mindful that some of the funding that will be reimbursed for, we're meeting with the province in the next couple of weeks. And we have to be mindful that we are staying within those parameters. And I will also say this will help inform our asset management policy, which we need to develop over the next couple of years.
Okay, so thank you again for the report. I do want to make a bit of a statement. I really do appreciate the work that your whole staff did on this. It was I appreciated the ability to sit in on the meetings, and it really it gave me an insight as to how how staff was dedicated and working on this, and I tried to convey that to council as well, and try to convey it to our ratepayers. We do appreciate everything that our staff did. We've got an extremely committed staff, and you know, everybody came and jumped in and worked longer hours than normal, and I think working well. But I do want to make a bit of a statement that our commitment as a county does not end when the water recedes or when the emergency alert is out. The recovery is going to be a long process that we're looking at, and council and administration remains committed to working through that whole process along with our residents, because a lot of residents, it's stuff we couldn't fix right away, but we are with you if there's anything that we can do. And we want residents to know that we hear their concerns and we understand the challenges that they faced as well. And we remain focused on helping our communities recover stronger than what we were before. So I thank you for that, and I want the public to know that we do have your back. We'll work at it to the best of our ability as a county. So thank you very much, Randy and Nick. So motion to accept the report. All those in favor? Carried. What's that? Jill did the motion. Oh, I thought you did. Oh, okay. Okay. All right. All right, Jill. Okay. Jill moved that. All right. Thank you very much. So we're at 20 after 10. So the municipal planning, that has to be at 10:30, right? Or 11. Interlake is at 10:30.
Through the chair, if you'd like, we could skip down to 8A1.
Okay.
Because I think the agricultural one might take a bit of discussion.
All right. Okay, let's jump to 8A1, Agriculture Assistant Resolution. So, Nick, I guess you're on again.
Sorry, Jurgen, I meant the assessment one for Jillian. I said 8A1, assessment and
8A1.
taxation, sorry.
Oh, okay, all right.
Apparently I wasn't loud enough. That's never usually a concern.
All right, so 8A1, the penalty cancellation request that we just heard. So, Jillian?
And I think Manager Smith is trying to come from his office from the assessment, so I just texted him. But the report is noting that the penalty was applied. June 30th was a Monday. We had posted on social media on the day for the time before to come by June 30th. It is a standard date. The only time that a day's grace is given is when June 30th falls on a Saturday or a Sunday. So given that the payment was an Interact payment, I believe, so it wasn't that it took time in the mail as well. So we're recommending that council denies the request to cancel the penalty.
Just a question to you. So did June 30th fall on a Saturday? No,
No, it was a Monday.
it was a Monday. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Yeah, questions?
I thought that June 30th, when the ratepayer went to the office, it was closed.
We don't, like, we close at 4:30, and I'm not sure what time the ratepayer came down, but all of our records indicate we were open, so we couldn't find anything that said we were closed.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Clarification.
Clarification?
Do we, through the chair, do we have a mail drop box on the front door? I thought we did.
We do. If we come in to work the next working day, because Canada Day is July 1st, if we come in on July 2nd in the morning and when we collect that mail, we will assume that the payment was dropped. And we do apply it as if it was dropped on time.
Yeah.
But this was an Interact in-person payment on July 2nd. But when we collect those checks first thing in the morning, it is like the first thing we process, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All right, I would entertain a motion. Anyone willing to make a motion? Is there a motion? Ed?
Yeah, unfortunately, we'll deny that request to cancel the penalties. I don't know why the office wasn't open or what time the ratepayer was there, but as per policy, I think this needs to stick.
Okay, thank you. Motion to deny the request for cancellation of the late fee penalty. Any discussion?
So I do, through the chair, to administration, we do all kinds of things to make sure that people are aware of that particular situation. Personally, I know that I can do a transfer, so I can make sure that I leave that up to my bank even if I'm not here. We do have a mail drop box just in case. We have the ability to write a post-dated check and deposit it January if you wish, and make it good for June. I'm not sure if it goes that long, but I think we have enough help in place that 100% of the people can get it in on time. So I hate saying that, but that's the way it is.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? No more? Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. All right, thank you. All right. We have another 5 minutes. Any other, or do we want to go to our Interlake presentation?
I think we should go to the
Okay.
presentation just because.
All right, I'm fine. You're here. So, okay, they're just getting prepared here. Do anyone need a break? Quick break? No? You do? Okay, just a very quick break. District Water Commission presentation. Please put on the mic, state your name, and away you go.
Excellent. Thank you for having me this morning. My name is Dwight Miscolic. I'm the manager of the Wild Water Commission. For many of you, you probably haven't had a chance to get into the weeds, although Dale, of course, sits on the commission as our representative. Does a fantastic job. Do I need to go a little closer? Very good.
It does go online, and if you're not close, people online won't hear it.
Fair enough. I'll just restate my name for the record then. My name is Dwight Miscolic. I'm the manager of the Wild Water Commission. I'm here to give a presentation today on the operations of the commission and your role within that commission as a member and some of the benefits and considerations that you have to go with that. So I have a bit of a presentation. We'll go through that, and then I'll leave ample time at the end for questions and anything else you want to discuss. If that works for everyone, we'll get started. I'll try and learn how to work the computer without messing it up. Some of the points we'll be talking about today in the agenda, you have this in your package, I believe, so you probably have reviewed this. We'll start with a bit of a history of the Wild Water Commission and some of the key points that you'll want to take in mind, whether you're actively involved in the commission or not. The key point there is that this really started with the integration of the Water for Life strategy at the provincial level. That's a program that provides funding that you will see through not just water projects, but other projects as well. So it's something that everyone on council should have some familiarity with. But it really started the Wild Water Commission. It gave us the opportunity to access funding to make major investments in the area. In order to do that, we had to go through a number of preliminary stages, forming the commission, creating a business plan, and as it happens, by kind of the late 2010s, we were ready to start building. We built 5 phases of the original build, and that's the footprint that we see today. That is just completing our Phase 5A component out to Darwell. So that is on the verge of being commissioned as we speak. And then, of course, as we grow, there are going to be times in the future where we look to expand and add new facilities to make sure that we meet the service expectations of our members and their ratepayers. So, general timeline there. We, of course, serve members. You are one of originally 19 members. There are now 18 because Wabamun, who was a member before, is dissolved and is part of Parkland County now. So those 18 members form a partnership, essentially, that becomes a commission, and that commission operates independently as a utility. We have a provision to add additional members, and we're looking at 3 prospective members currently. So again, speaking to the need that is there and the demand in the area. Our principal advocacy right now is with Alexander First Nation, who's in a bit of a water situation and looking for alternatives there. So we're looking forward to engaging more with them this summer. I had a meeting with them yesterday, actually. So the region is growing, and it shows. And the service is growing, and we're keeping pace with that. Membership comes with certain rights, duties, and obligations. You get an ownership in the line, by which I mean you get an allocation within that line and an opportunity to exercise that in advancing your own development within your community. So that's something to be mindful of. Of course, obligations that come with that right include the need to pay for part of that capital build, certain administrative obligations, making sure you have somebody to sit on the commission and participate. So that's the principal obligation there. Of course, the most visual component of our operation is the capital builds. You'll see stations all throughout the area, always busy, sometimes tearing up roads a little bit, and we're always happy to talk about helping you out with that when the need comes. So keep that in mind. We've divided our capital build concept into an original build, which is those 5 phases that are being completed now with the completion of the 5th phase. Those are the original footprint of the commission, and then we have future builds, which are the expansions and upgrades. The important thing for you as a member to understand is that the way the business plan and the board has structured these is those original 5 builds were covered with the members covering a 10% portion of the capital build to meet the requirements under the Water for Life grant process. The future builds, so an additional some $40 million over the next 25 years, will be covered entirely by the commission, and we'll recover those through our water rates and water sales. So you won't receive a bill for those going forward, and that's an important consideration. It marks a clear change in direction. Now that we're at a certain stage, we've fulfilled the obligations of the business plan, and we're now moving into the future where there's not that obligation for the members anymore. Just as a general sense, this is the overview, some 200 kilometers of line through those 5 phases. That is the footprint. Our primary focus is now on filling those in, getting connections, and that is where the main advocacy with our members is now sitting. We want to see, particularly in that kind of the Lakes District area, that triangle between Lac St. Anne, Lake Isle, and Wabamun, where we expect large amounts of growth. I anticipate you have that in your capital plans as well, anticipating booms of growth there. We want to make sure we meet those needs as it arises. New people coming in are looking for that service, and we want to make sure that our plans coordinate with your plans so that we have an answer and a solution for developers as they come in. The perhaps less visible side of what WILD does has to do with our admin and governance structures, our operating structures. We'll go through a few of those points. Obviously, we're a regional service commission. We're similar to a municipality, but also different. We have the same obligations as other public bodies in terms of reporting and governance decision-making processes, but we operate as a utility and less as a political entity that a municipality might otherwise do. So we are heavily regulated by the Alberta Utility Commission, by rate-setting standards, a different set of rules than municipalities in some senses, but the same theme. The move towards a public good, something that's fair and transparent and reliable, and that is productive in advancing the causes of all local authorities. So worth keeping in mind. We're on parallel tracks, moving in the same direction, and we're here to help. We are guided primarily by a business plan. Some municipalities will have business plans or corporate plans or strategic department plans. Our principal document is a business plan that we revise every so often. Our most recent revision was in 2005, and this is the first revision that has a number of strategic initiatives that are giving us some clear guidance on advocacy items that we want to achieve, some membership relations and engagement activities we want to do. How are we going to be more proactive in engaging with our local authorities to make sure that our plans do align, and we're working, again, on parallel tracks, but in the same direction. So we like to say that we're member focused. I hope that you find that. If you ever don't find that, let's have a chat, because it's better to talk about those sooner rather than later. And I should say, in compliments to council, the representatives we have, and administration, you have always done a fantastic job, and you really set the trend in that. So good on you for that. Let's keep it going. In terms of the day-to-day stuff, our operations, again, we are 200 kilometers of line that's monitored daily, either by physical checks or remote access through the SCADA system, all those fun things. We have 8 truck fills or stations, 7 clear connection points, and that grows year over year. So again, speaking to the demand. Given our growth stage, we are primarily contract-based in terms of our operators, our admin services, our support services. We know that at some point that is going to change, but that comes with growth and the stability of revenue. Right now, we are contract-driven in order to give us the best service for the same dollar provided. So that is, again, a bit of a difference to what the traditional municipal body would see. Certainly, you guys have staff rather than contractors, but again, service-minded, and that's why we're making those decisions. In terms of our scale, we're about $3.2 million a year in operating or budget capacity. So the size of a small town, relatively speaking, and our staff levels, such as they are, kind of reflect that as well. We're keeping pace with that. Our capacity within the system is about 2 million cubic meters, which we expect to achieve close to that by 2037 and hold that over the 25-year period. And then as growth meets that demand and we have to look at expanding, again, that's where we come into these future expansion projects, new pumping stations, twinning of lines, that type of stuff. So there is a plan, and again, all laid out in the business plan. Our operating systems are meant to deliver that service delivery as indicated in the business plan. So it works quite well. In the member presentations that I give to various boards, I always include this slide on joining the commission. Now, obviously, this doesn't directly apply to you, as you are already a member and already familiar with your obligations. The reason I can include this slide is it's a good reminder of what those obligations were and what the discussion was when you considered joining this some 20 years ago now, and also as a reminder that even though you are a current member, when the commission decides to add new members, they are held to the same standard as you were originally. The same obligations are given to them as were given to you. We don't give anyone a break for coming in late. You guys carried the brunt and to get us started, and we know that we have to respect that. So we have various measures in here to make sure that they pass the same set of resolutions or bylaws as you would have passed, binding them to the same obligations. And we've added also a bylaw for new member buy-in rates to more heavily regulate and define what their buy-in charge will be so that it is full cost recovery and accountable to those original members as well as fair to the ones coming in. So we think we have a good process with that. I'm sure Dale will keep his eye on that around the commission table. And again, if anything comes up where you have questions on this or think that we need to revisit that, that's what we're here for. So good to know that there's a process, and that's why I include that slide. For those of you who are members and who joined and are now looking at developing and accessing the system, the main discussion that used to be why join now becomes why do we connect? Why are we looking for connections? How do we do that efficiently and effectively? And principally, they're the same discussions as we're on day one. Water security. We know that local aquifers and groundwater levels are, we'll say, stressed. Of course, a year like this year helps, but this hasn't been the normal year for certainly the past 15 years or so. So we know that as more people come to the area, growth, which of course we're all keeping our mind on, it's going to stress those groundwater tables further. We want to have alternative solutions to bridge that gap and make sure that everybody has reliable access. And water security is a key focus, one of the prime focuses. Water quality is also an issue. Certainly that was one of the driving factors for forming the commission in the beginning. Many of our members had water quality issues that were very detrimental, and I think, not to point anyone out, but certainly the town of Onaway was in that case. Their traditional groundwater tables, groundwater wells that service the town were not sustainable, so they needed a solution. And we expect that to be the case in many of our member communities, or certainly areas within them, and that's another key point. You want to connect, you want to join because you get access to the member's rate. When you have direct connections, you get the member's rate. There are various reasons why there's a differential in that rate, and we can talk about that in the question period if you really want, but council meetings are often boring enough, if I may say so. We don't need to go into it too much right now. It is an incentive, though. That member's rate is about 30% less than the, let's say, truck fill rate. And again, there are reasons for that, but an advantage to joining, getting a direct connection. You get engagement and advocacy rights, where you're preeminent water rights advocate around the big table at the provincial level, and also at the local level when we're talking lake health and other things like that. We like to be around the table, and we like to participate in those discussions. So we're part of the solution in that as well. And I think that the general argument to be made is that water security, better water quality adds to the service basket that you can provide to your residents, that when a developer is coming to town or a new family is coming to build a house here, they can answer that question, where do I get my water? You have an answer for them now and something that they can rely on. So whether it's a residential development or a business, it helps to have this as part of the solution that you're offering. So that is why you join, that is why you push connections. To help push connections and again coordinate those plans, we've been working on what we refer to as a common connection strategy. Boils down to, I think, a map you may have seen around this table once or twice before through your planning departments, what we call the Priority Connection Mapping Project, which essentially sends out buffers where we have shared interests, shared priorities, and we try and coordinate policy to meet those common goals. That's going to be our preeminent document as we finalize that and adopted at the board level, to reach out and engage with the planning departments in your own communities to make sure that we are on the same page and that we are hitting your priorities and targets in our planning as well. So we're kind of we're still in the draft stage, obviously. I wanted to wait to engage with Lac Sainte County Planning Department in particular until I've met with council. I just think that's the formal order of business for that. So now that we've met and you're kind of aware of this, don't be surprised if I reach out to your planning departments and we have another meeting in short order on this. I would like to have something finalized by the fall of this year so that we can hit 2027 running and give you guys the best chance to make the most of your term on council here in this 4-year term. It sounds like a long time, but it often isn't. So we want to make sure we're all moving together as quickly as we can on that. The priority mapping project for us hits a number of what we consider priorities. We want to target high-density areas because the economics of targeting high-density areas make sure that rates are stable and competitive. That's pretty key. We wanted to keep our parameters within a kilometer buffer of the existing line. The reason that we've done that is that in our mind, that in order to put, let's say, a connecting line in a 1 kilometer area, that's about a $500,000 bill. That's something that's manageable on our end. We can find the funding to do that if we have to, so we can be active partners in a connection policy within a kilometer of our existing line. So that gives us a reason to come around the table and find a partnership with your communities. We wanted to identify growth priority zones, population-based mostly, but you'll also have your own planning documents internally about where your growth priorities are. So we wanted to make sure that our map includes a buffer of your map in there, and that's the stage we're at now, finding what those buffers are. We want to include industrial and commercial and recreational considerations. We wanted to include ecological, environmental, sociological type factors as well, lake health, First Nation and traditional medicine areas. We wanted to make sure that we do the best job of promoting growth in areas that protect traditional resources for all communities within your greater community. And I think that most of those priorities are going to be similar to the ones your planning documents and your priorities are as well. If there are others that we've not thought about and we need to consider, this is the time to engage on those, so we will do that. And basically the result we're looking for, again, is something that is focused and something that is manageable so that we can actually accomplish little steps. I think you'll find in the municipal game, it's a definition of the little steps you take that get you from point A to point B and show progress. And we want to be a part of that solution. That's why we're coming up with this, to show a bit of leadership there. Right now, this is pretty much what that buffer looks like. And again, we don't have to go into the specifics of all of that today, but trust me that everything I just spieled about in the slide before is somehow built into this buffer here, basically within that 1 kilometer zone, looking around the lakes areas, looking around growth areas, First Nation areas, whatever we pointed out before. So this is the target we're looking at. It doesn't mean that it can't be expanded or built on, and I do expect that once we get a chance to talk with your planning departments, we're going to find from their discussions priorities that you want to add, and we will happily do that because we want common policy. A few points as Lac Sainte County as a member, just to give some specifics on you. You're about 8% of the Commission's total allocation. Works out to about 145,000 cubes out of the roughly 2 million that are there. I know I say 8 and I've got 7.4 there. The reason for that is that in the business plan, where I draw that 7.4 from, that includes the assumption that Alexander First Nation is going to be joining. They technically aren't a member yet, but if they were a member, your allocation, the total volume would be the same, but your proportional rate within the business plan goes down slightly. So it's a trivial matter, but worth noting, just because you will see a difference in different documents on that. Your current use, we have this pegged at about 65,000 cubes out of your 145,000 allocated, so lots of room to grow. Most of that is through truck fills right now, although you do have some connections hopping in, and we expect others as they come through. That supply figure, again, based on a 25-year plan for about 4,000 people equivalent. There's a bit of a difference in how rural and semi-urban or urban communities are evaluated their water allocation under the Water for Life program. So you'll see there, it's either based on 120 or 300 liters per day design volume. And that's all factored into that equivalent amount of about 4,000 people helping, being served by this service. So I don't know the total population figure for Lac-Saint County or even for the east end of Lac-Saint County where the service is predominantly located, but that's going to probably be about a third of your current population base, something like that. So again, not the full solution, not intended to be the full solution, but intended to be a buffer for those urgent needs now and something to build on in the future to support your own growth. And with that, I will say thank you and happy to take any questions on that.
Okay, thank you very much, Dwight. Bo?
Could you go back to that last slide there?
This one, yes.
Yeah, there. It says the current use for 2025 is 65,000 cubic meters. That's almost half of what we're allowed, is that correct?
Yes.
And we only have 2 actual customers.
Yes, as I recall, 2 direct connections. I won't preempt your question.
The question is, it seems like for 2 customers, it's an awful lot of usage, 65,000 cubic meters when our total allotment is 145.
Yes, an excellent comment. Both of your direct connections are probably taking on about between 10 and 15,000 of that, which obviously the math doesn't add. Where does the difference come up? The difference is in the truck fill use. And I have to estimate how much of the truck fill use is actually being allocated to Lac-Saint County as opposed to any of the other members, in particular the summer villages around the areas which are joint accommodations. So I think it's worth noting out that that 65,000 includes a good number of truck fill use. Probably about 40,000 cubes of that is truck fill use.
So how do you differentiate the user at the truck fills?
Another excellent question. We don't. We differentiate, and that's part of the reason when we talk about rate modeling, why the truck fills get a higher rate. It's because we can't differentiate, and so we treat them all as customers. How do your members get the best bang for their buck? Well, you get them to directly connect. If there's a subdivision that you know is having water haulers in there every day to provide their service, that might be a top priority for you to get a direct connection. It gets them a lower rate, it gets trucks off your roads, it gets your direct connection allocated to a fixed asset rather than floating around all over. In what I do appreciate is something that you can't necessarily be accountable for in terms of where's that allocation going. It's worth noting that truck fills weren't originally to be included at all in the Water for Life program. It was a byproduct of the fact that we knew this was a 20-year growth, and truck fills provided a revenue opportunity to buffer the member costs during this phase. But the trade-off was that there was no ability to be to the dime accountable for that allocation. I should say to the cube accountable for that allocation. So I'm not sure if that helps answer your question or just adds more confusion, but
Just
Well,
to
it adds
follow-
some clarification and does add a lot of confusion, but we'll get there.
excellent.
Just to follow up on that, wouldn't it be relatively simple if the people that haul the water allocate and let you know where that water is going?
Yes, you could put a process in place to do that. It would certainly be easier for those folks who haul their own water. If you have a cube in the back of your truck and go fill it up, when you set up your account, I know where your account is. You have to put your address in. So I know, in theory, where you're intended to take that water. It becomes a little bit more difficult when you have a commercial water hauler who might be dropping off at several houses. Some of them might, I think of the Rich Valley truck fill, some of them might pop up into the Barhead area out of a matter of convenience. Sandy Lake's another great example as well. And all of them are great examples of this very well pointed out. It's not even a problem. It's an opportunity, right? And
But generally speaking, if a trucker hauls, it's going to be in one area, I would think. They're not that big, those trucks.
I'm
are they?
comfortable making that assumption as
Yeah,
well,
I
although I
don't
know
know.
it's not perfect. But
Yeah.
yes, you're on the right point. We
yeah.
have to assume that they're not hauling it 100 kilometers away. That's not economically feasible.
I wouldn't think so.
We have to assume that if they're going to the Sandy Beach truck fill, it's probably within 10 kilometers
Yeah.
of that truck fill station that they're taking their water.
Okay, thank you.
So to take that note a bit farther, for this council, needs to be aware that some of those trucks that would fill up at Alberta Beach end up going to Parkland County.
It's
That's a
quite possible.
possibility. So, you know, the truck fill area is one that you might get a great idea, but it might not be very accurate. It's still within, say, 25 kilometers of Alberta Beach, but that puts them into the county of Parkland. So it kind of confuses the situation on that. I think the direct hookup ones are the ones where we can really actually move ahead with the whole project. You know, you speak about where are we going to grow, you speak about close proximity to the main line, you talk about one mile, or 1 kilometer, sorry. That is where we need to look together to figure out an economical way to get as many of those people into the system, because the more people that are in the system should theoretically decrease the price of cost to everybody. Am I correct in thinking that way?
Absolutely, yeah, that's bang on the right way. That's why we're prioritizing the easiest way to get connections together. We view that the easiest way to do that is through partnerships and through shared policies, practices, and priorities. If we can get that to ramp up, we have rate stabilization, just like around your table when you're talking taxes. The more accessible property you have, the more growth you have, the more rate stability you have in taxes. Same discussion, again, along a parallel line for us. We want more sales to do that. Now, you do have to be mindful, and I only bring this up because I've had this discussion with other members who have both urban and kind of rural considerations around the same table. Those water truck fills have a valuable service that we want to protect in terms of you don't want to use all of your allocation necessarily. I'm not telling you what to do, but you might not want to use all of your allocation to direct connections. You might want to make sure that there's enough left in those truck fills to make sure that the farmer who wants to fill the sprayer up with a quality water has that access into perpetuity. So again, it's a partnership. We have to make sure that the policies work for everyone and that we're prepared for that.
Thank you. Any further, Barry?
What does the average household pay for the water?
So an average household is going to use about 12 cubes of water a month, give or take. And so at the direct rate from Wild, that's $3.53 a cube. So is that pushing 30 some? Something like that, $30, $40 a month.
Okay, further questions? Bo?
The fill stations, do we have the statistics on the consumption at those stations?
Per station?
No, fill stations.
Yes, per station.
Per station, yes.
I don't have them with me today, but I certainly do have a record of them. I could bring up my
If you
computer
could just make sure we get a copy of that.
Yeah,
that'd be
absolutely. Yep.
great. And one other thing is you mentioned rate stabilization based on larger usage.
Yes.
I guess it is. Can you explain that a little bit?
Sure. So as in any rate model or any budget, let's say, we'll start at the budget level, there are a number of fixed costs, overhead costs if you're in business, fixed costs if you're in the municipal or public sector world. The larger catchment that you have sharing those fixed costs, such as capital costs, the lower the rate is, because our rate is intended to be and is full cost recovery. So the larger base you're sharing those fixed costs over, the rate stabilizes. I can guarantee, I can't guarantee you much, but I can guarantee you the rate will always go up. It will go up by less the more people come up, because inflation, yeah, of course, the classic answer.
Just a question, Dwight. How big a staff do you have?
So that's a good question because it's a tricky question to answer. How many people do we have around the table to pull from? We have two core operators. We have myself, we have one financial officer, and then one admin support officer. That's the basic staff component. Now, those admin folks are basically quarter time because we're just not at the capacity we need to have full time. I'm in theory somewhere between quarter and half time. Again, another reason for why we have them set up as contracts and not. The operators are more or less full time, but full time to the extreme in that they're covering the system 24/7. So again, those two operators by contract are probably the equivalent service coverage of 4 to 6 full-time staff.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, any other questions?
I am nothing if not the master of confusing answers, so.
Well, thank you for your presentation. I would entertain a motion to accept your report for information. Dale makes that motion. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Thank you again. Very good
Most welcome, anytime.
presentation. All right. Next, we have some time before the 11:30 appointment. So shall we go to the agriculture one now, Anne? That works, okay. So A1, agriculture assistant resolution. Nick, you were going to present that because Aaron is not available today, right? All right, so Nick will present. Don't forget your mic.
Just need 1 second to pull it up on this computer.
No problem. So maybe I'll just give a background while we're waiting. The discussion was with the pretty severe flooding, especially in parts of our county, that we take a look at whether or not we want to declare an agriculture emergency. So this is the discussion on that. Anne, did you want? No. So that's what we're going to discuss, and we have some information in front of it that Nick's going to expand upon.
Thank you, Chair, for the time to put this together and pull it up on here. So this originally started via councilor's request for information. At the time, the recommendation is that council would have a resolution to specifically request support from the province of Alberta related to the agriculture impacts. However, I will caution council that this does not guarantee any opportunity of funding, that this letter would be just a request that they review this under their normal means. I believe this started as a request for an agricultural disaster declaration. However, in research, this does not immediately translate to financial results. And it would also, we need to get some more data behind this before we would head to that direction, as we currently just don't have enough data to declare that that would be a valid or non-valid recommendation. Further to that, the recommendation would be that council directs any member that, or any farmer that speaks to them, to look at their business risk plans and look at AFSC and other funding resources that would most likely insure the cost for lost yields. So I do believe, does everyone have the resolution in front of council that was crafted there?
Yes, everyone had it prior, yeah.
So that was the final recommendation, was the resolution to send those letters and to help try and get the Alberta government a little more aware of where we're sitting currently.
All right, any discussion on the motion? Or, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I requested that the county, with respect to what has happened in the past disaster, that the county would initiate a letter to the provincial government indicating that there was severe issues in the county, not recommending that the county do anything, but recommending that in advocacy for our farming community that we stand behind some of those issues. Simply stated, the motion wasn't intended to change crop insurance or direct AFSC, none of the programs. Instead, it was designed to do what we're supposed to do, and that's advocate for residents. The resolution respectfully asks the government of Alberta to assess the agricultural impacts within our community and consider additional recovery measures if they are warranted. Agriculture is one of our foundations, as we all know. And when producers face significant hardship, the effects are felt by families, local businesses, and service providers. So, whether assistance ultimately becomes necessary is a decision for the province. Our responsibility is to ensure that they understand the conditions being experienced here in Lac Ste. Anne County. And I believe this is a measured, nonpartisan, and responsible request that demonstrates Council's support for our agricultural community while recognizing the province's role in determining any future assistance. Now, the particular thing that I put forward is no financial cost to the county. It doesn't say we're going to do anything, but it supports the fact that the provincial government needs to hear from municipalities that people are experiencing problems. That was the whole intention of this resolution. And I made it a resolution because with respect to what we talked about this morning, about not being clear at a letter going out to a provincial government, this would be clear. And all council would have the opportunity to talk about what should be done or whether this should even be done. That's why I brought this forward. Now, if council doesn't want to do it, that's their choice of council.
Okay, thank you very much, Dale. Any discussion on this? Other comments? Bo?
Have we had any inquiries as to crop insurance from ag producers at all?
Through the chair, I am unable to answer that. I just haven't had the time to meet with Aaron with dealing with the other half the county issues that I've been dealing with. I can get that answer and get it back to you offline.
I can maybe just comment on the crop insurance. Crop insurance is a separate program that farmers sign up to. It's a program that is funded a third by farmers, a third by Alberta Agriculture, and a third by Ag Canada. And it's a voluntary program, and it's specific to your farm on yield. So we would, if somebody requests assistance under that, we would never hear about it, because that's totally between the farmer and AFSC. And it covers crops, and it has the ability to cover actually lack of rainfall, which is not much of a problem this year. But it can also cover, if it's crops, depending on your insurance, it could cover yields if they were flooded. But again, it depends on the insurance that you took out as a farmer. It's farmer specific, and it's something that we as a county would never get involved with. All right? Just and I'm talking specifically to the crop insurance program. Nick?
Just to add to that, to the chair, through the chair, when we did our flyover, we did notice significant overland flooding, and we do have some good documentation of flights from it. So I do agree with Councillor Johnson's motion that this letter is very well advised, being a farming community. It would be recommended that it is ascended because of the damage that we did see from the aerial landscape when we were above the ground.
Okay, Jill, you had something? Oh, okay, anyone else, any comments? Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, according to the resolution, it's certainly up to council. I know Aaron had felt that declaring an agricultural emergency wasn't right, and that's not what this is doing. So this is just informing. If, you know, if council wants to do that, certainly, I don't think there's any harm in it. I do believe that probably not a whole lot will come of it though either. So that just, but I don't think there's any harm in doing it. Ann?
Through the chair, I would agree with that, and I think that even though I believe the province, we know the province is aware, it would just further council support, and it may lead to some ministerial meetings, which we're always happy to attend.
And I do think the positive part is that it does affect a lot of our agriculture residents, and that they know that we care about their well-being. I think that makes a good point. All right?
That was the intent of my whole resolution.
All right, so the resolution is on the floor. Just any further discussion on the resolution? If not, I will call a question. All those in favor of the resolution? Anyone opposed? That's carried unanimously. So we will get that put together and get it out. And it's pretty clear stated what we're expecting in the letter. Thank you very much, Nick. All right, just a second, I gotta grab my agenda again.
I think we can skip down to number 10.
Number 10, letter of support, Lac Saint Anne Foundation. So that would be Trista. You're on.
Thank you. I apologize first for the lateness of the addition. It was added this morning. It came through while I was away and it just simply got missed. But it is a fairly straightforward matter. So we did receive a request from the Lac Saint Anne Foundation to provide a letter of support for some grant applications that they're applying for. Specifically in the request, they note the SANG Enhancement Foundation, Saint Anne Natural Gas Community Enhancement Foundation, and the New Horizons for Seniors program. They're looking specifically for funding to look at some transportation options, likely through primarily the East End bus, but potentially the West End bus as well, to have their residents access some additional programming. So they're looking, I don't have the total amount that they're asking for from SANG. However, they are looking at up to $50,000 from this New Horizons program. So I did provide a draft letter of support as well as their request for your consideration.
Okay, thank you, Trista. Any questions through to Trista on that? You have the draft in front of you. I believe it wasn't on our agenda before, so you may not have had a chance to look at it till this morning. Any questions on it?
It's a no cost to us
No cost.
anyway.
Correct, no cost to us.
Yeah, it's strictly a letter of support for their applying for the grant. Someone prepared to make a motion?
Will this take some pressure off ours, giving them money? We hope.
Probably not directly, however, it may bring some income into those programs. However, with that said, this is definitely an opportunity in the future for the East and West End buses to look at, or these similar type grant programs. We talked about it internally about making an application at this time, but with the impending East and West End bus joint meeting coming up and kind of looking at how operations look, it's a little premature to make an application right now.
Okay, thank you.
I'll make
Mike?
that, I'll do option 1, so we send that letter of support.
Thank you. So Mike moves that option 1. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed, if any? No, carried unanimously. Thank you very much.
Through the chair, I think with the 11:30 appointment coming up, we could move to Counselor Dirkson's notice of motion rather than the Bearland condo.
Okay. All right, so we did that 10 or 11A2 actually, the notice of motion, so let's go to that. If I can find it. Or, well, I'll hand it over to Mike to talk about.
Yeah, no, it's just a notice of motion to bring it forward, the policies for, what is it, July 23rd meeting, to have a look at the compassionate grading program, snowplow program we have going on. I know we talked about this last fall. We kind of left it as is for last winter. Like to bring that forward before we do get into the winter season, as much as I hate saying that in July, but it'll be here sooner than later. So I don't know, is anything else, just the policies and the operations of it, I guess, or?
Go ahead, Ann.
Thank you. Through the chair, and this is just giving everybody notice that this will be coming forward. GM Nick will be bringing it forward, but we'll make sure that council has the policies today so that you'll have ample time to look at them and be prepared to ask questions and review them.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Mike. And, okay, go ahead.
I'm looking at these documents that were handed today, and there's two different dates. There's a proposed motion brought for August 20th.
That was an internal error.
Oh,
It'll be on the 23rd meeting, right?
Yes, through
Not
the chair, through the chair and to Councillor Knish, the August 23rd date is a date that administration is going to present it. And once we have council July 23rd, once we have council's input and feedback, our intention is to bring it back to the August 20th for adoption so that we're well before winter starts.
Good, thank you. Okay, any other, so we don't have to do, oh, sorry, Ed.
Can we get a list of the compassionates that we already have? Again, I know we had them last fall, but to find them, if we can get that again. Good, thank you.
I'm not exactly sure, but this is presenting a notice of motion, and I think that's all we need.
Yes, it's just to give council the heads up that this will be coming to the 23rd, and at the 23rd, then we can discuss it. I think I sent you an email outlining how it's supposed to be processed.
Yeah, so it is a notice of motion that'll come up at the next meeting. I don't think, we don't have to approve anything on that. All right, thank you very much for that, Mike. All right. We've got, do you want to have a quick break? We only have 10 minutes, so before the next appointment. Or I'm guessing the water rate distribution bylaw might take a little longer than 10 minutes?
It may. We could start it. The 11:30 appointment, just so council's aware, is not feeling well and will be attending virtually. She still will be attending, but virtually.
Well, we can look at the water rate distribution bylaw. Are you presenting that? Oh, it's Brian. So we're on 11A1 for those who are following through.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, Reeve and Council. Today, we're looking at bylaw 02-2026. In terms of the overall history of the file, on December 13th, 2024, County Council approved a bylaw to establish two existing customers, which coincides with Dwight's earlier presentation in terms of Rich Valley School and Lakeview Campground. So we had to establish a rate in terms of what we're going to charge our users. So if we bring up attachment number 1, please. You'll see we had 7 criteria in terms of establishing a rate. We looked at, just click on the actual attachment. There's a different attachment. It's okay. Okay, right there, perfect. So there's 7 criteria. We looked at the cost of bulk water, billing administration, operations, system expansion, county operations, and the reserve for meter replacements. And the 7th item is the debenture repayment, which Dwight talked about as well. So fixed costs, when you're dealing with passing it along to our customers, the cost of the wild water is a fixed cost, and we used 100% of that cost being passed on. The other ones, we worked with the finance department and looked technically saying billing and administration only takes 15% of the time, and we gave it a percentage, so it looked equitable and was defendable. The debenture repayment, though, is a 25-year debenture for the Alberta Beach and Alexis connection, and so that is all part of this same establishing of the actual rate. In February 12th of 2026, this county council established a rate because the wild rate went up by 5%. So we basically just matched that rate. So my purpose of providing the history was to say how we got there, and we just followed in the rate. There was a request from a private development, Water's Edge, that has private distribution systems, air gap system, chlorine testing, and they have dedicated operators as well. So their request was, could you come back with a more competitive rate? So Wild's water rate is here, Lac Saint Anne County's rate is here. They're asking for something in between. And so this agenda item talks about, is council willing to perform one of the 4 options that we have in front of you? Would you amend a new rate identifying these kind of developments, basically bare land condos, at a different rate? Would you establish a new rate specifically for it by itself, so a new bylaw would have to be advertised? Would you leave it alone till January 1st of next year and address it with the currently yearly update? And so those options are all available. And so this is a chance to ask questions. I've had Dwight in the room as well too, so he can come join me up here and he can answer questions in terms of the wild rate again and the distribution, and have open discussion in terms of what council's wishes would be.
Okay, thank you very much, Brian. Any questions through to Brian? Mike?
So are they looking for just 1 meter at the road, because it's like 100, and then just tie into their system, or what are they looking for?
So through the chair, excellent question. They basically have an internal distribution system that they'll look after on their own. So they're looking for a air gap system, a single install of a meter, and they would pay as a customer on the single bulk rate on a per month basis based on that rate. They would be responsible for distributing the cost to all of their residents. So Lac Saint Anne County is not providing separate bills to each resident. They would be a single customer matching Rich Valley, the campground, and this will be our 3rd customer.
So what kind of water meter do you need? Like, is it a 4-inch line or what, or?
Yeah, and it's roughly $2,500 to $3,000, and it's a 4-inch service line.
Okay, further questions? Bo?
So they're basically looking for a bulk discount, is that correct?
Through the chair, yes.
Okay, so do we have any leeway with wild water in our rates?
Dwight?
I think that I'd like to just reframe the discussion a little bit. I don't know if they're looking for a bulk discount, as in if they're buying a certain amount, they get a discounted rate. What they're looking for is a rate that's closer to the bulk rate that you guys get from Wild. And again, our rate in Wild is calculated based on full cost recovery under the rate modeling calculations of the M1 schedule of the AWWA stuff. It is a rigid set calculation, a rigid set calculation. Our capacity to give a discount on the rate is not there. We're not going to run a loss, with all due respect, to help that. We're giving a fair rate as it is.
So maybe if I can just interject for a second, I think what we're looking at is, are we prepared to give a different rate because our administrative costs basically are less with 1 customer than if there'd be 100? And are we prepared to, like we do right now, 438 per cubic meter, we pay 336. So we've got $1.02 that we're charging. So if we have, you know, if they were, I don't know how many homes there are, but let's say 100 homes, we would charge them 438. But if we only have one customer, are we prepared? Because we don't have to send the bills out to 100 people. We don't have to do the water testing. We don't maintain that pumping station or whatever you guys call it. That house, we don't maintain that. So are we prepared to make that consideration? I think that's the question. And I hope that's relatively simplistic.
I got a question too.
Yeah, just I've got Brian and then Dale.
So my question would be to you, Brian. Knowing Wildwater's experience with delivery, did you engage with them to come up with an amount that might reflect exactly what we're talking about, cost?
Through the chair, is your question around engaging Wild itself for a new rate?
No, my question was with respect to did you look at what the possibilities would be to charge Water's Edge per cube?
Through the chair, we met with them as well, and their numbers is obviously with the Wild bulk rate, it would be above that, and then below the current rate. So the rate that we currently have in the bylaw, they were looking for a number below that. I did not come up with any speculation. First, I wanted direction from council to be clear that we were establishing a new rate based on the needs of a Bearland condo. From that discussion, if you vote in favor of that, administration will go away and say, here's our overhead costs, just like the 7 related items, and say, here's our proposed cost. I didn't presume anything out of this discussion.
Thank you.
My question was, we're charging what, $29.76 for a monthly connection. What would a 4-inch connection cost be?
Through the chair, we would keep the same monthly connection.
What isn't the water meter is worth a lot more than a little 1/2-inch water meter per house, right? And this meter would be housed in their building, or where would this meter be housed? Because if you got to put a building out and put heat in it, if it's the main line.
So through the chair, it is identical to the Lakeview campground in terms of the air gap system, the size of meter, and the pressure system. So if we go ahead with this new rate, the Lakeview campground will come back to us and say, we are identical to a Bearland condo. So I guess I'm saying out of this will come another spurious relationship in terms of we would have to review their relationship with this agenda item and the bylaw, because under the Bearland condo, they would qualify to be included in the different rate.
Okay, Barry?
So question for you, the connection fee, is that per house or per system, or how does that 29.76 relate?
Through the chair.
Just per
That's
meter?
just per meter, so it'd be one flat fee of $29 for the entire development.
Okay. And Wild has not agreed to do any deal on water for us? For a Bearland condo setup?
Well, in terms of Dwight's presentation, the price, I won't answer his question for him, but it is 30% less than the truck fill rate that we pay as well, too.
Yeah, but they're guessing at some of the truck fills, so let's be honest about that. On the administration side, we're charging $438. Is that covering all our costs? Are we making money, or where are we at with that? Or do you know?
It's 460.
Oh, sorry, $460.
Correct. And through the chair, at this time, we don't have a detailed report. It appeared to cover our costs in 2025, but for 2026, we haven't done any direct analysis. We just simply mirrored the 5% increase as well. At the end of the year, we'd be able to pull those numbers and see if it's covering our costs again.
Okay, thank you.
Dale?
Well, normal process would be that council would go through administration and ask administration to go forward and get some information for a change. Am I wrong? I mean, we can talk about this all day long, but if we don't give you direction, and your direction comes through a motion from us, So we need to make a motion that after you come back to us, then we have more discussion on what's going on. Am I correct through administration?
I think you are correct. The options are there and it gives us that option. It's up to council to make that decision. Ann?
Through the chair, you've already explained what I was going to say. The options are there for council. And we just want to make sure that we know it's up to council, but I would caution to say, as GM Hartman has said, we have to be careful the precedents we're setting.
Paul?
So basically what we're looking at is we're looking at a difference from 353, which is a wild water rate, to 460. So what is that, 25%, 20%, somewhere in that range? They're asking us to give it to them for the same price as we get it from wild water. I just don't see that
No,
as economically
they said somewhere in the
feasible.
middle.
Okay, so somewhere in the middle would be an average, I think you mentioned before, 15% is what we allow for administration of wild water in your budget. I think that's what I heard, but maybe not. But anyways, what were we looking at? 10% reduction, which would be about half of our total gross for that subdivision, and then possible other subdivisions. I know there's another Bearland condominium next door to me that's got, you know, a potential of 300 lots. We have the campground, which is 300 lots, maybe 400 in that campground now. That's a lot of reductions. So we need to figure this out properly, and we have to have some sort of boundaries, I guess, where reductions can be made. And I don't think we have enough information right now to make that decision on this particular development.
I think, and I mean, you make good arguments, I think, and that's why, you know, possibly we should be looking, if you look at all the different options, is, and I think, and I don't want to be presumptuous, but I think looking at either option 3 or option 4, one is option 4 where we carry on the way it is and establish a new rate with our new budget, or option 3 is where we ask council or administration to come back with a recommendation on that new fee. So, at that point, we can decide, do we want an extra fee or do we not? But that's really where we're at. Dale?
And speaking of that, I would make a motion, option 3, that the county council direct administration to establish a separate bylaw specific to Bearland condo developments.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion on that motion?
I think we gotta be careful with the one-offs, just like we do with our taxes. Yeah, I think we should stick to what we have, and then when it comes time in 2027, we review it, put in another rate, if we wanna do that, a rate for the Bearlands, like they said, the campgrounds, and then residential. But I think it needs to be volume-based, maybe, rates.
I would have to agree with that.
Thank you, Ed. Mike?
I would agree, yeah, do some volume based, like if you use so and so much, you go back to the full rate. If we want to look at that in 2027, and, you know, you get a certain amount and then.
Brian?
I'm sorry, if I could just add a
What
few
do you-
comments to maybe help clarify this. I think the first thing you have to remember is you are now in the utility game. You are bound by the same requirements to meet the utility rate calculating models as the commission will be. So the real discussion that, in my mind, you're going to be having is whether or not County Council is looking to explore a move from pool pricing, where you lump all of your costs for utilities together and share them all amongst all users, or if you're going to what's called branch line pricing, where every different branch, you factor in all of the appropriate costs, so your full cost recovery for each of those branches. If we look at the arising issue with Water's Edge here, that is the core of the discussion. You're not, as Lac-Saint County Council, putting in any additional capital cost to facilitate that connection. So you have no mechanism for adding new capital costs on. There are other costs that you do need to add and make sure that you are full cost accountable. Let us take an example of Water's Edge number 2, some other subdivision over here that might want to add, but they come to you and say, in order to connect, we need Lac-Saint County to put in $100,000. You might say yes, or you might say no. But if you say yes, you then need a mechanism for recovering your $100,000 investment, which means on that branch, you would then put a rate rider on, fully accountable, to recover that over the time. That's how you get around this, the one-offs discussion. You're using the same principle, which is full cost recovery and rate modeling. Totally. And you have the basics of that there. There's principally nothing wrong with what you've done. The question is, you can do it better to be better servants to your ratepayers who are looking for fair pricing options. And the way that you move to a fairer pricing option system is branch line economics.
Okay, thank you for that, White. Yeah, Bo? Or, no?
How is our pricing incomparable to other municipalities or counties or utilities that are offering the same service? Where do we fall in line at this pricing at $4.60 a cubic meter?
I'll press the dangerous button. I can speak on behalf of Wild's rate in comparison to regional, and perhaps Brian can speak then to what your rate might be comparable to other municipalities. Our rate is certainly higher. The $3.53 that you get is certainly higher, but we should be. We're at the end of a long line of chains, so costs flow up the chain. When you factor in the opportunity cost of your next best option for getting water, we're not out of the ordinary extreme. We're competitive in that sense, and that speaks to the demand on the system and the demand for the service generally. If I could give my best recollection of that kind of 460 number within the range of other distribution direct connection numbers off the table that Wild keeps in our business plan for competitive rates in the area, it's probably on the high end, but again, I expect it to be, because you're at the end of a long chain and you're adding on your own costs in what is, relatively speaking, a less densely populated service base. Again, speaking to that volumes number. Our comparatives were in the capital region where there's higher density. So when you look at that number, just bear in mind there are other factors at play. You should expect it to be higher, a little bit higher. What that higher number is, I wouldn't hazard a guess here, but it could be found.
Thank you, Dwight. Dale?
So then confirmation, higher density with a lower cost is a plus.
Well, that would be the goal for sure.
Thank you.
If I could just interject through the chairs, one piece that's new for council is the quarterly reporting. So that's where you will see, as revenue is being earned, what the cost recovery of the utility side of the operations is happening. So we can keep an eye on that and talk about that. The other side to consider is that when we bring the fees and charges bylaw back to you as part of, like, the regular fees and charges as part of the budget process, what would be important is to benchmark comparable municipalities. And Dwight did say it quite well. It really depends on what that municipality has deemed what they'd like to put into the reserve. If we need to replace that type of meter every 2 years or every 3 years, have we considered that as part of the pricing? And I think one thing to maybe consider is the price that we pay to buy the water from Wild, thank you, isn't even potentially a break-even cost, because that's just like buying the good. Then there's the internal admin, and those 7 things within the report is just really important for us to determine what costs we would require to be covered. And then, do you want, as part of managing a utility, to be cost recovery to the zero, or to be putting something into the reserve for capital improvement? And every municipality kind of picks that threshold a little differently, but we can bring benchmarking back when we bring fees, of course. But I just wanted to add that there's 2 kind of new things. We're going to be doing fees and budget together in the fall, and the quarterly reporting is where we can keep an eye on it. We set rates based on budget, and then we go, how well was that math and that model, and do we have to adjust it? So just to give a little bit of leeway there for Brian and the team.
Okay, thank you for that. Bo?
So the 25%, are we comfortable with that to operate this utility? And I guess that question's for you, Brian.
Through the chair, are you saying in terms of adding 25% to the current 438 rate and just adding 25% and coming up with a rate?
No, I'm saying the 25% extra that we charge from 353 a cubic meter to 460 a cubic meter, are we safe at that 25% operating increase? Does that give us a
Does it
budget?
cover our costs is what he's asking.
Yeah.
Well,
does
in
it
this
cover our
case,
costs?
as Jillian referred to, we could do a full cost analysis with every quarterly report or at the end of the year as well too, and make sure it covers our costs. Based on the bylaw that we approved in February, it was administration's recommendation that yes, we were comfortable in that zone. This is a different discussion in terms of a request for a different style where this development has all of their infrastructure on site with the capacity to distribute the water without us, A, doing any water tests, B, providing almost anything except for a monthly invoice. So their strategy was, we could ask the question, can you give us a different rate? So that's what the discussion, I think, is related to.
I got it.
Ed?
To Brian, how is that different than the campground or the other customer there? Sorry. The school. How is
Through-
that different? They're supplying, like the school supplied their own infrastructure. We had to put the line and the meter in.
Through the chair, correct. So I said earlier and still say it again, Lakeview Campground, if this was a separate bylaw, we would contemplate moving Lakeview Campground over to this Bearland condo because they are typical and defendable and the same distribution model. So correct.
But sorry, but Darwell School, we monitor the water there. They
Through-
don't do their own.
Through the chair, Rich Valley School and the Darwell School would remain on the bylaw rate established
Right.
in February of 2026.
Yeah.
Correct.
So they're
Absolutely.
two different items.
They're two different.
Yeah. Okay.
Like I said, I think we gotta go like with option 4 and then look at that branch system that Dwight was talking about in the future. To make a decision on this right now, it really doesn't make sense. Hold
Okay,
it the way it
yeah.
is and look at that
We
branch.
do have one motion on the floor right now, so that's fine. But you would have to defeat the motion, okay?
Quick question. Well, once you tie into this wild water, you don't need, that's city water. Like Darwell School doesn't need its own chlorine system or whatever they have, filtration system. That, you can kind of bypass all that with this wild water line, can you not?
Correct. Through the chair, the only responsibility we have is to the children and make sure it's drinkable. And we do a weekly test for chlorination and levels. So that's,
Go ahead, Paul.
So how does that differ from a subdivision like Golden Glen, for instance? They're the same. We run the water to the curb, and they're responsible from the curb into their property for their own for their own water connection. So how would this be any different? What I see here is I see us losing 100 accounts in Water's Edge and 400 accounts in the campground. Am I wrong in assuming that?
through the chair, can you just provide clarification? Because the only connections we do have currently are the Rich Valley School, Lakeview Campground, and Darwell being commissioned in September. So the other subdivision you're talking about, I'm just not clear, sorry.
I'm thinking for the future, when we want to hook up another subdivision along the route, for instance, the water line runs right in front of Windmill Harbor, which is a huge new development as well that has their own water treatment plant, their own sewer systems, their own water systems, and they do their own monitoring. So here we have another subdivision as well that's going to be asking for a discount. So where do we draw the line?
So through the chair, the Windmill Harbor connection would be identical to the Water's Edge and identical to the Lakeview Campground. That would all fit nicely into a separate bylaw. There's no, Windmill Harbors would not come back and say, okay, we need a different reduction. They'd fit right into the actual Bearland condo typical style. So council would be covering that with the new bylaw.
Go ahead, Ann.
Sorry, through the chair, and I hate to cut off a discussion like this because it's a really good discussion, but our 11:30's been waiting for a while.
Okay, so obviously we're not finished discussing it, so let's just adjourn this portion. We'll come back to it after our 11:30, okay?
Is Dwight able to stay?
I don't know. Dwight, are you able to stay for later? Yeah, okay. All right, so we'll just adjourn it for now, and we'll come back to it after our presentation. So we'll go back to our agenda here, which is our 11:30 appointment, 6.4, and that's a municipal planning service. Jane, I apologize for our going on so long. I hope you can hear me. And if you can, I'll put you on now, and they'll put the mic on for you.
Thank you. I can hear you. I am trying to figure out how to turn my video on.
We can hear you. Go ahead.
You can hear me. You may not be able to see me. I'm sorry. I don't know if I can turn my video on or not, but I am here.
Yeah, go ahead. We can't see you, but we certainly can hear you. Thank you.
Thank you. So I did have some slides that we had prepared to go along with this presentation, and I had originally planned to be there in person. I apologize that I'm not there in person, but I've come down with some sort of awful flu. So if you have to bear with me as we go through this together today, I think you're probably quite happy that I'm not there. Are you able to see my slides, Council?
Yes, we see them.
Okay. Then I'll take you. There we go. They're coming up here now. Excellent. So we'll go to the introduction slide. I've met some of you before, but not all of you. My name's Jane Daphne, and my company's Municipal Planning Services. We're based out of Edmonton, and we work pretty much exclusively with municipalities, although we've done some environmental planning work too with some watershed associations and the province, which is, I guess, where our interest in the presentation information today comes from originally. The presentation we have for you today is just for your information. It's information about how to incorporate ecosystem services into municipal land use planning to manage risk and improve drought resiliency, address some of our flooding risks, which seem to be becoming more and more of a prevalent issue for municipalities, especially rural municipalities, and then reduce infrastructure costs, which we know are one of the most significant costs to all municipalities in the province. So we do work with some of our municipal clients on, say, land use bylaws and municipal development plans and intermunicipal development plans, so that long-range planning work. And then we're also involved for some of our clients in processing things like subdivision and development permit applications, where we have to work pretty closely with other municipal administrative staff to balance and think about some of the things you guys were just talking about, how development impacts the services, the service and service delivery systems that municipalities in most situations are ultimately responsible for maintaining and providing levels of service that are appropriate to your community members. And working on, I guess, the short range and the long range planning sides, we've encountered in many situations struggles balancing the cost to the developer and the cost to the municipality, and ensuring that it's fair and reasonable as much as possible, while still ensuring that we're thinking about bigger picture situations. So, you know, if development occurs here, what are the impacts on the areas adjacent to this development area? And some of the things that we've identified as maybe not being done as well as we could do from some of the previous subdivision development and planning exercises that we've been involved in the past is identifying environmental assets, so natural assets that are providing significant infrastructure services to municipalities, and maintaining those assets and services going forward to try and reduce the long-term cost to municipalities to provide infrastructure, and then manage flood risk, and then ultimately also impact or minimize potential drought risk too. So the presentation today is to give you an overview of what ecosystem services and natural assets are and why they're important to municipalities, and what benefits they ultimately can provide municipalities, and then provide you with a little bit of information about the types of tools you can utilize to prioritize the retention and enhancement of ecosystem services and natural assets within your own municipality. So, what are natural assets? Natural assets are features that deliver services comparable to traditional municipal infrastructure. And they're a little different than roads per se, but they are related to roads because a lot of rural cross-section roads include ditches that you use to manage stormwater. It also includes things that would function like a reservoir or other stormwater management facilities that municipalities are responsible for. Natural assets include things like rivers and wetlands, some soils, forests, groundwater systems, and things that are just by being in the environment, providing services to support community safety, service delivery, and ultimately economic stability, especially for rural municipalities. So I want to provide council with some practical information about these natural assets and how they function alongside your built infrastructure and why they matter for long-term decision-making. So unlike engineered assets, which depreciate and require scheduled replacement, natural assets often, I'm going off script here a little bit. You're okay where you are with the slides. Unlike engineered assets that depreciate, these natural assets can often appreciate in value if they're maintained and can deliver multiple services to municipality and community members at the same time. So for example, something like a healthy wetland, which you have many, can provide and manage stormwater, improve water quality, and sometimes impact and increase water quantity in the groundwater where you need it, and also reduce flood risk within an area or municipality. These natural assets, which we've historically, I think, in many situations, and this is, giving myself a poor report card, but I think it's a truthful report card. We've historically overlooked them in planning, sometimes in operations, and also in municipal financial planning. Because we should be identifying them, inventorying them, and factoring them into our asset management planning because they intersect specifically with it. And they intersect with financial planning and risk reduction planning that municipalities undertake. In many parts of Alberta where there's communities experience both flood and drought cycles, and I think that's just about all of Alberta now, natural assets play a pretty critical role in buffering these types of emergencies that we deal with and directly affect the infrastructure costs and emergency response costs and needs for municipalities. So understanding how natural assets are part of the municipality's asset base allows councils to compare natural and engineered solutions on a consistent basis, including life cycle costs, risk exposure, and service reliability. And that helps to feed into informed decision-making for councils, right? So this is important because thinking about natural assets with this type of framing supports informed governance and ensures that land use decisions, capital investments, and maintenance priorities can reflect the full range of assets that support the services that you as a municipality provide your residents. And by establishing this type of a foundation, council can more effectively evaluate when to protect, restore, or leverage natural assets in a fiscally responsible way that supports community resilience, well-being, and the long-term sustainability of your municipality. Okay, we could go, we'll stay, yeah, this one works. So yeah, the different types of natural assets that a municipality have are water assets, land and soil assets, vegetation assets, and natural drainage and storage assets. We have a large range of natural assets within Alberta. We're very lucky, and they support a lot of the economic development activities that occur specifically in rural Alberta. Water assets can include things like rivers and streams and wetlands and sloughs, and they're really common right across rural Alberta. We also have groundwater systems that supply rural and small community water needs in some situations where you're not tied into a regional water system. Land and soil assets include productive agricultural lands. Thank you. Yep. And native grasslands that support food production, erosion control, and water infiltration. Now, you don't have as much of the native grassland area within your municipality, but you certainly do have some very important riparian areas that help reduce erosion and prevent flooding within your municipality. Some of our vegetation assets, which also provide similar services, include parklands and boreal transition zones, which you also have, and those very important riparian areas that probably through your planning department, I know you have in some of the campground development that I've seen adjacent to some of the other municipalities that I work with, and through some of your subdivision processes looked at protecting through things like environmental reserves and environmental reserve easements, do help to protect when they're conserved, bank stability, and also work as a type of infrastructure service to address and deal with stormwater management within those development areas. So why do we do all of this, and why is all of this important? It's really important because by clearly identifying these major categories of natural assets, so things like floodplains and natural drainage features, present within your municipality, you can begin to inventory and assess and manage them with the same rigor that you would apply to your built infrastructure. And this helps to ensure you have a balanced and defensible planning decision process and reduce risk and reduce operational and infrastructure costs within your municipality. So we've talked about, I think, planners at least reducing risk to the developer and to the municipality by separating hazard lands as part of the subdivision development process and planning processes associated with, say, area structure plans. And I think that that's been a good first step for us, as we want to remove those lands which can be hazardous to development from the development footprint area. But there's this next step that I think is also important that we consider recognizing, and that's inventorying these assets just like you would with your normal asset management planning exercise, and creating a value for these types of assets that you have, and then incorporating that into your own asset management programs, and thinking about it in terms of future infrastructure planning and future infrastructure expenditures. And to some extent, part of that, it makes it easier, right, to explain to somebody why, say, you know, they've got 160 acres and 30 acres of it aren't developable because they're wet, why there's still value in that 30-acre area, and recognizing or I guess helping people understand what that value is and why it's important that they stay out of it, and that those areas retain their integrity so that they can provide the function and service that they need to reduce cost to the municipality down the road in having to develop engineered solutions to managing things like stormwater. And go to the next one. Okay, so yeah, no, that was good. So ecosystem services are really the practical benefits that natural assets provide to communities and municipal operations. So they're the service that you get or the benefit that you get from the natural asset, from the thing. In Alberta, water-related services are particularly critical, and they include drinking water supply, flood conveyance, stormwater storage, and groundwater recharge. Our rivers and streams transport and moderate floodwaters and reduce damage to municipal infrastructure that you have to pay for and maintain, right? Like roads and bridges, while wetlands store runoff and filter pollutants before water reaches treatment systems. You're a municipality that has a number of incredible and beautiful lakes, and a lot of development around those lakes. Those lakes themselves provide water storage and recreation opportunities that support local economic activity. But managing the water quality within those lakes is a challenge, right? And part of it relates to the development that has occurred historically around those lakes. But one of the things that we can do in order to try and support or bolster the water quality within those very important and beautiful features or beautiful lakes within the community is to try and ensure that the water conveyance systems moving in and out of those lakes are maintained and enhanced. And that can help to ensure a reduction in further degradation of the water quality of those lovely lakes. Additionally, groundwater and aquifers supply drinking water for many rural homes and farms in small communities, and they sustain base water flows and streams and wetlands during dry periods. So all of these features provide services that we use every day and are important to the rural way of life and to the recreation value and economic development associated with agriculture and with those recreation developments within our municipalities or rural municipalities. Okay, we'll go to the next one. So I think this is the piece that we maybe as planners, again, giving myself a bit of a hard time, have not recognized as fully as we perhaps should. These natural assets generate real tangible benefits to municipalities. And if we do inventory them and identify them through, I guess, a system of identifying conservation priorities within the municipality so that we can maintain them and invest in them where appropriate to do so, we can ensure that the municipality itself benefits by avoiding or reducing costs that would otherwise be incurred through providing engineered solutions or addressing with emergency responses to, say, flood and drought situations. And these are substantial costs that municipalities have to deal with. I know our road maintenance, road reconstruction, road rehabilitation relating to some of these flood events that we've been dealing with, are dealing with right now, are phenomenally impactful in terms of just cost to municipality, but also cost to administration, right? In terms of time and energy in addressing and responding to some of these things as they arise. So the more of the natural assets that address and maintain water conveyance, surface water conveyance, and that we can utilize to replace or reduce the amount of stormwater management ponds, culvert replacement, addressing insufficient ditch sizes to deal with the more significant amount of water we're getting during flood events, the lower the capital expenditures and long-term maintenance obligations for the municipality will be. So that's why we think it's important to be thinking about these things now, especially as you're going into perhaps a budgeting cycle and thinking about ways that you can expand your knowledge base, your municipality, to support future planning endeavors, either through municipal development plans and land use bylaws or through future capital plans where you're thinking about and prioritizing what aspects of your infrastructure you need to invest in to address. This is sort of new reality dealing with water that we're dealing with right now. Next one. So the risks really that we see in not addressing natural assets or allowing natural assets to be degraded within your municipality relates to flooding and infrastructure damage. It's the loss of wetlands and floodplains increases flood risk and damages roads, bridges, and property, which can increase emergency costs, but also increase the cost of maintaining those pieces of infrastructure. Erosion and riparian degradation, so that would be adjacent to creeks and streams and some wetland areas and adjacent to your lakes. When those areas are impacted, they can cause soil erosion, which undermines infrastructure, and then there's additional costs associated with stabilization efforts to address those. And then in some areas in Alberta, we've identified that there's impacts on water supply challenges. I don't know specifically if that's something that you have experienced, but in some of our other rural municipalities, there are notable impacts to groundwater or concerns about groundwater availability that enabling or protecting some of these natural assets could work towards improving. Then the last bit there just relates to increased life cycle maintenance costs for municipalities. Poor soil health and grassland loss can increase runoff and sedimentation, which raises costs for maintaining those existing engineered solutions that you already have, and expenses to the municipality associated with those. Next one. So that's thinking about these things just in terms of monies, right? Cost to the municipality. There's other risks for municipalities that we should, I think, be aware of, just relating to legislative requirements that come into effect when we are implementing or municipalities are making decisions about land use and development. So we are required, right, when we're developing and approving municipal plans and then going through the process of managing land use and development within the municipality to ensure that decisions issued by the municipality are consistent with the Municipal Government Act, the Water Act, APIA, and the provincial wetland policy. And in doing so, there's, in order to be able to demonstrate compliance, we really need to know where these things are, right? Specifically, wetlands, water bodies, water courses, those things in particular, and identifying them through the development process. It works. It's what many municipalities, rural municipalities do, but there is additional cost to the development community in requiring all of the burden of the cost to identify those things to be on the developer. And in the absence of having something like a municipal scale, natural asset inventory, that's sort of what we have to do. We don't have other options. And it works. It does work, but it does increase the cost of development and it decreases, I guess, the efficiency of the timeline of moving through some of those approval processes. And it is something that we really do, I think, as planners and as decision makers, so you as council, need to have available to you when you're considering making those sorts of decisions to be able to demonstrate legislative compliance. Additionally, knowing where these resources are and identifying which ones are important to your municipality to protect or conserve enables you to reduce risk to human health and property by considering water availability and then impacts of a development or developments on drought, fire, and flood risk within your municipality. Similarly, there are risks to economic development when we're not thinking about not only surface water conveyance, but also groundwater availability. When we're not factoring how a development may impact those things over the long term, we could inadvertently have negative impacts on existing economic drivers or the ability to develop in the future in areas where we now have to deal with surface water conveyance issues and or lack of availability of water, groundwater. So there's these real tangible impacts associated with development and natural assets that we have come at in some ways, but perhaps not in as comprehensive a way as we could moving forward, that enables municipalities through the different systems and different, I guess, siloed activities that administrative activities or functions that take place within the municipality. If we started working together to inventory and identify these things at a full municipal level, it would make it easier for us to ensure that, say, when planning and development is making a decision or providing a recommendation to council, they are also in alignment with what Public Works is looking at doing in terms of, or needs to do in terms of the assets that they manage and the planning work that's been done and the monies that are being invested in improvements in those areas. So we aren't inadvertently making decisions in one area that are creating unanticipated costs, expenditures, or increasing risks in these other areas within the municipality that then, have tax implications and all of those other implications for you and your residents. So those are, I think, the most important ones. The last one there just relates to litigation. And I'm not familiar with sort of your particular history, but I do have a number of municipalities where the risk of litigation as a result of our historic way of doing things has been real. And as there has been more water, either surface water related or less water, groundwater related, groundwater availability, there's been more litigation, which has directly impacted municipalities and community members, right, within the municipality. And so we do, I think, need to be mindful of the risks associated with development on hazard lands and in areas that are, classified as having natural assets. And how approvals that we issue, if we don't have sufficient information before we issue the approval, could result in an increase in risk of litigation for the municipality. Next one. So there's the risks bit. The benefits piece, which I think is really important too, just relates to this cost item again. So natural assets and enhanced natural assets provide and contribute to these ecosystem services, which are essential to the types of services that municipalities provide. And they include things like clean drinking water, flood management, stormwater management, drought resiliency, emergency preparedness, and then they can even go as far as to provide improvements for air quality and carbon storage, especially in areas with lots of grasslands. There's a real risk to municipalities for providing inadequate information about the condition of natural and enhanced assets and how the mismanagement of these types of assets or deterioration of the services they provide might result in additional municipal costs associated with development. And then costs associated with having to increase your budget to maintain your engineered assets or have to provide new engineered assets to replace the natural asset that was taken out through the development process. And I'm seeing that in a number of places right now where we developed through the wetland because we could, the developer paid the 3-to-1 compensation and did not develop a pond or develop something that was a fire pond or something weird. And now we have water management issues that the municipality is having to go back in retroactively and try and figure out how to address. And so there's increased cost to the municipality, but then there's also all of these additional burdens for the person that owns the property that just wanted to build the house, right? And now we have some of these problems. So next slide. So additional benefits relate to things like cultural services even, so health, recreation, and cultural identity. These natural asset areas are often places of great beauty, right? And sometimes even cultural significance to members of the community. These green spaces, even if we don't spend any money on them, they're just there, and we have the ability to observe them and partake in them. It can have physical and mental health benefits for community members. They can have lower cost, they can be considered lower cost recreational assets and provide recreational opportunities, you know, something like an informal path or a formal path. And then they do make our developments more beautiful and improve, I guess, or create a more naturalized environment. And certainly in the lake developments and a lot of the acreage developments in rural areas, there's a lot of value in being able to market a property that backs onto a permanent green space. So there's value to the community, I guess, to have or protect through the different mechanisms that are available to municipalities some of these natural assets that provide benefit to the adjacent landowner too, because they can increase the property value because you have this beautiful asset that's been preserved. So they're important from that perspective as well. And then from an economic development perspective, they provide benefit to the municipality in terms of protecting water availability, soil protection, and even helping with the pollinators. And then they provide stormwater and transportation infrastructure. They can address, as I said, air quality and carbon management, and then provide benefits to wildlife and fisheries management too, which factor into some of our recreation development within municipalities, or the enjoyment, I guess, of those aspects for municipalities and community members. Next one. So how do we do this? I've talked about why it's important and how it can save municipalities money and help to reduce risk for municipalities if we're factoring some of these things into our planning and development, our budgeting, and our infrastructure decisions and plans. There is this cool tool that we in Alberta have not utilized anywhere near as much as we possibly could. There has been much greater uptake in British Columbia and in Ontario. Now we're seeing in Alberta some framework being developed to enable municipalities to have a really specific tool for doing natural asset inventories and developing natural asset management plans. But this is pretty new for us. I think we are a little bit behind the 8 ball in this area. And it's something that we ought to be incorporating into municipal asset management practices in order to support the provision of effective and efficient municipal services that include not only our engineered assets, which historically in Alberta, that's what we've done, but also our natural assets and our enhanced assets. And those all get factored into your asset management planning considerations and valuation processes. And then, you know, it helps to, I think, better and more effectively identify where money needs to be spent and where there's justification for saying, hey, development can't occur here, or if development does occur here, it has to be mindful of this huge wetland, which is the stormwater management facility, and how surface water is being conveyed in and out of this area so that we don't have inadvertent costs related to, say, culvert replacements in the future in this area and the surrounding areas, because we're starting to see that, right, in other places. So if natural asset inventories and natural asset management plans become part of our asset management programs, this enables municipalities to set levels of service across all your service areas that link risk assessment and management to these levels of service and evaluate asset conditions and performance relative to the requirements, and then to optimize associated lifestyle or life cycle investments for that natural assets and your engineered assets as well. Next one. So if this is something that you consider doing, and I think that there is a federally funded organization, they're out of BC, but I know they do work across the country. They help municipalities, and there's some grant funding available to assist with that. And it's something that I would suggest to you that you explore. the first step would be to do the natural asset inventory, and then the next step would be to do evaluation of your natural assets and a goal setting exercise to determine within your municipality which of these assets are of the most importance to council and the community, and then establish some targets for what you want to maintain, what you want to enhance, and where there are assets where, you know, yeah, they're an asset, but we also need to do development. So these are assets that we can sacrifice in order to facilitate the growth and development of our municipality that we need to see happen. And then once the valuation of the natural assets has occurred and the goal setting and establishment of targets has occurred, then your administration has the ability to consider these goals and targets throughout the municipal budget process and then throughout the other planning and budgeting, you know, processes that are undertaken by your different departments. Until the assets are identified and then they've been valued, and you have set some direction at the council level for administration, it makes it really difficult for administration to have conversations with community members about why they can or cannot do development in certain areas, or why it's important that some of these areas are left in their natural state and or need to be improved in some capacity. So there's a data collection requirement in order to facilitate this that would enable council to make informed decisions about what areas or assets within your community need to be protected going forward. Then that direction can be provided to administration, who can then factor it in through the recommendations and the reports that they bring to council for your consideration. So so it starts with data. All these things always start with data, and then they need governance. They need governance support and control and input in order to ensure that administratively, once you have the data that you need in order to protect these natural asset areas that you have determined are important to your municipality, administration can carry forward and ensure that the applications that they process and the recommendations that they bring to you are consistent with the direction that you've provided. Next one. So in terms of data, we recommend this asset management mapping, and that it's provided to you in a format that can be incorporated into your GIS system. Some of these things you can get for free. There's some of it is available at the provincial level, and I think likely you have some of those things already, and it's something that your planning and development department is already looking at. Some of it requires you to have a engineering or environmental consultant go out and compile for you. So there's a cost to that, but there is some grant funding available to do those things. We do recommend that you gather as much data as you can, as the grant funding enables, and then incorporate that information and those assets into your GIS systems and then your planning documents so that it gets carried forward in a transparent way for landowners within the municipality, and then in a way that can be consistently evaluated and considered by your planning department. When it is in the GIS, when there's maps and data that's available, if you have turnover within your administration, it makes it easier to ensure that that information doesn't get lost. So benefits of having that data include this increased transparency, improved internal and external communication, and then reduced costs and delays in the development process, and early identification of challenges for municipal infrastructure planning. And the next and I guess final step would be to update your municipal planning documents so that you're sharing that information internally between departments, and then you're also sharing it externally with landowners and developers, and that helps improve that transparency about processes and application requirements and design requirements. And we believe it enables council at the governance level to provide clear direction to administration and decision makers regarding what is important to you and your municipality and the people that you represent. It enables greater consistency and transparency about the subdivision and development process and it adds greater security for developers by enabling upfront and early project planning and reducing costs associated with delays for developers, which we get slammed for all the time. So it makes everybody's lives a little bit easier, and it's the more data that's available earlier on in the process, the easier it is to identify any challenges that would result in delays for projects or increased costs for developers, which makes it easier for us to, move or navigate through those situations and enable developers and the municipality to factor these things into their timelines and their planning and costing processes. So, in summary, natural assets are these wonderful gifts that we have within our municipal boundaries that provide services to the municipality that you really, the only thing you have to do with them is make sure that they don't get destroyed in some capacity. And then they will continue to provide the service that they are providing naturally to you. There's a huge value to the municipality in identifying them and mapping where they are and factoring them into your own infrastructure planning and budgeting to ensure that you're getting the most out of them that you can when you're thinking about where you need to spend money on that hard infrastructure that you need to spend money on. There is value in assessing their condition if you can do that as part of your asset management planning and identification. And then certainly there is value in identifying the actual monetary value of the asset. And that helps council determine which ones are of higher priority to conserve and which ones, maybe make sense that it's okay if this one goes away. It doesn't have the same kind of value. And there's other things that, we need to balance out in order to ensure that economic prosperity of the community. The second step is to plan, right? Is to identify goals and long-term service delivery requirements that are provided by these natural assets and to incorporate the natural assets into municipal operations and maintenance plan. And then the third step for the municipality, if this is something you're considering doing, would be to train administration to share the data openly with the development community and then to incorporate natural assets into financial planning and then measure and report your successes. So that is a lot of information. And I hope it gives you some information about something perhaps you didn't have a whole lot of information about before. And maybe it's good timing and it's something you can think about as you're moving into budgeting processes for next year. Any questions?
Okay, thank you, Jane. Any questions through to Jane? No questions? Okay, thank you very much for your presentation, Jane. Appreciate it. And I'd like a motion to accept your presentation for information. Mike moves that we accept for information. All in favor? That's carried. So thank you very much, Jane. Appreciate your spending your time with us.
Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day.
All right, let's I think we'll move back to that water distribution bylaw and finish the discussion before we move.
That's the last item we have, yes.
Yeah, that's the last item, and after that, we'll go into closed session, right? You can have lunch before closed session. All right, so let's go back just to reiterate, we do have a motion on the floor, which is option 4. Option 3, sorry. Option 3, I marked it, I don't know why I said 4. So option 3 is the motion on the floor. I'll open it up again for discussion on it. Dale?
So the reason that I brought this forward is it's not about reducing the rates. It's about ensuring our rates accurately reflect the service being provided. Where the county owns infrastructure, rates should recover the cost, no question. Where condominium corporation owns and funds its own infrastructure, the rate structure should recognize that difference. And that's why I brought that forward. It should recognize a difference, and we're not doing that.
Mike?
I know option 3 is on the floor. I like option 4. I'd like to do that, but then I'd also like to set a rate in there like that your water meter determines the value. Like if you have a 4-inch meter, you should charge more monthly for a 4-inch meter than you do for a 1/2-inch meter, because at $29, you'll never recover that before you got to switch out that meter. So that's a bit of a problem. And,
Okay, thank you. Brian?
So through the chair, perhaps I can offer what Dwight had mentioned during our break. So I'll give full credit to him in terms of moving it up. And it's reflective in both of these comments as well, too. So what we're looking at is a new rate calculation model methodology that's fair, equitable, and defendable. And so perhaps the bylaw should speak to how we determine the rate. So the rates could be listed in the schedules after A, B, C, and D, but the body talks about how we got there, the 7 defendable items, and GM Campbell referred to it as well as balancing the budget. So we include all the costs, of each schedule of A, to give it to the schools, B, to deliver to the campgrounds, reflecting the cost, C, to a Bearland condo style, D, to a subdivision, which Councillor Kanish referred to. So perhaps we use that methodology, and perhaps the 1,000-foot level discussion is what the actual approved motion today should be.
Okay, thank you for that. Any further discussion?
That would be more like the branch, you know, like each, you got your main line, but then you got your branch, like he commented on. I like that idea, where each branch has its own rate depending on the cost it costs us to supply to that branch.
So possibly what we should be looking at to cover that, if we were to amend motion 3, that it doesn't limit it to Bearland condo developments.
Through the chair, correct. It could include all areas that we deliver this service to and have those as schedules.
Exactly, yeah. So that might be an option to cover it. And that covers it better probably than option 4. Option 4 is, again, is somewhat limiting. So I don't know, Dale, you have a comment too?
Sure. I do have a comment, and my purpose was to get this to the floor. It is to the floor. We're discussing it right now. We're gonna come up with a good answer, and that's my whole point. I would be very happy with making an amendment to include other properties which would address some of those situations that other councillors have about those particular things. We also heard about branching, so to add to that, rather than specifying Bearland condominiums, you could specify that one and include the three other categories that you spoke about, Brian. I would be happy with that, to make that amendment of this option.
So
Yeah,
would you do that to properties, or would you do that to the branch line costs?
And so further to your comment, it was Dwight's earlier comment, it'd be branch line style calculations, which is what his idea was, which is exactly what we're forecasting to provide here under this new motion.
If we change that to a bylaw specific to branch line distribution, and that covers everything, and it leaves it open then for management to come back to council.
Right.
All right?
So I'd make that amendment.
Fair enough.
To remove Bearland condominiums, but specifically branch line connections.
Okay. Good. Okay. Ed?
Is this something we need to do a separate bylaw now, or is this something we could wait till January and when we renew our
Through the chair,
existing?
it's up to council to decide. The challenge that the request has been to a new development as well too, and they're excited to connect, I guess is the words I would use. And so with your permission, I could go ahead and work with our administration and come up with something before January 1st of 2027. We're offering that service.
I think that decision is up to council at that time if we want to implement it immediately, or that the whole thing gets implemented January 1st. I don't think we need to decide that here today. It's when your recommendations come back, we can then put the date of implementation in that bylaw. Does that work for you, Ed? Yeah. Okay. Any further discussion? So I've accepted the amendment. So let's vote on the amendment first. So the amendment is to remove Bearland condo developments to
branch line calculation methodology.
Branch line connections.
Branch line connections, okay? All in favor of the amendment? That's carried. Now we're back to option 3 with the amendment. Any further discussion on that? If not, I'll call the question on that. All those in favor of option 3 as amended? Motion is carried unanimously. Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, council.
Sometimes a break is good to develop those things. So appreciate that.
And Mr. Chair, I just would like to thank Dwight for staying, because I know you'd not planned to do this, I'm sure at all.
Through the chair, there is one more item that we did forget to add to the agenda. If we are appointing a chair for the January 23rd meeting?
Yes, we did agree a couple of meetings ago that the second meeting of every second month, we were going to have a different chair. I've asked Ed if he would chair the next meeting, so he has agreed, and Ed would chair the meeting on the 23rd of July. All right? I don't think we need a motion on that. We have a motion that's what we're doing. Yeah. So with that, I will declare recess for the meeting, and we are going into, for the public, we're going into, somewhere I have my agenda, into closed session, and this is to protect privacy. It is a legal discussion. So we will Okay, welcome back, everyone. We forgot to mention it before, but Barry moved to go into camera prior to us going into camera, and that was passed. And Jill, you're moving to come out of camera, and that's carried. And with that, we are finished our meeting, and I declare the meeting adjourned at 12:55.